It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday. Thank you so much for joining us, the 14th day of December 2012. And there is a reported school shooting in Connecticut, one of the states that has draconian restrictions on gun ownership. Reportedly, right now, it looks like only the gunman is dead. But the media will hype the living daylights out of this, so anytime somebody goes crazy, the first thing pops in their head is go to a victim disarmament zone, a free fire zone where it's guaranteed no one is armed to protect themselves. If you went and randomly went in people's houses in Texas, more than 70% of people statistically own guns in the state, about 60% nationwide. And, you know, if you just randomly went and kicked indoors and tried to, you know, shoot people, you'd get shot in most homes. But government training camps, you can bet nobody is going to be armed there unless there happens to be a police officer out in the parking lot. So we'll be looking at that. Also, obviously, the big news, and Kurt Nemo has a story from our source, Jim Tucker, up at Infowars.com. Trilateralists discuss big war in the Middle East as Obama sends soldiers to Turkey. And here is the CNN report. U.S. to send troops, Patriot missiles to Turkey. The troops are already there. The Patriot missiles were already there. They've been there for 22 months, helping get al-Qaeda trained and armed and how to use shoulder-launched surface-to-air missiles, and that's all on record. And the ambassador there in Benghazi and the al-Qaeda command post worldwide is not Afghanistan. It is Benghazi in eastern Libya. He was there, of course, reportedly helping to transfer the missiles to Turkey. And then he magically got killed when the local security chief, which is al-Qaeda, came by and killed him. And for 8 hours, Obama ordered the stand down. Gee, what do you think's going on there? They're getting rid of the evidence of what they've done, because when they roll into phase 2, after they bring down Syria, they're going to launch terror attacks in Europe and the United States. And then you know what's going to happen. You're going to learn to have the TSA search your vehicle on the highway. They've got them in place in all 50 states ready for this, and they're going to be going down those pants. It's all an act of demoralizing and totally dominating you, getting you ready for full martial law. So trilateralists discuss a big war in the Middle East as Obama sends soldiers to Turkey. And we've got the quote here from Tucker, from his trilateral source. It could be the biggest war we've ever had over there. One was overheard saying, according to Tucker's report. So, and he's got some great sources inside Trilateral, not just Bilderberg, because they're one and the same. And we're going to be breaking that down more here, obviously. Also, the really important news, I mean, much more important than a giant regional war and things like that. TSA calls bomb specialist on a wheelchair-bound 12-year-old girl with bone disorder. She cries. His mommy is told she can't help her. But that is an important story. What is really, though, a lot more important than even that is Justin Bieber kidnap plot gang wanted $2,500 per testicle. Per testicle, if you can even believe any of that. So that's the really important top story in the United States today. We will have coming up a special report we've worked on for several weeks off and on. Aaron is in there as usual, putting the finishing touches on it. So it should be ready by the second or third hour today on the fact that 2012 is a grand hoax. That is coming up. And we'll get into implementation of Obamacare now beginning. And Bloomberg reporting a doubling in the average premium you'll be paying monthly. Oh, it's free health care. How you liking it? And now all you people that were getting free health care through the state, You're not going to get any of it now. Hope you enjoy yourselves. It is Friday, the 14th day of December, 2012. I am your host, Alex Jones. And we are joined by a special guest coming up in the second hour today. And we are going to be looking at the different operations that the globalists plan to run against this country. But make no mistake, this nation is in a process of being re-educated and being collectivized. NAFTA and GATT and Homeland Security and Northcom and the FEMA regions and the federalization of the government training camps, everything. The psychological brainwashing, drugging cores, the psych warfare systems of the television. It's all pointed at you and your family. And it's all meant to wreck civilization and society so that a eugenics population reduction can be carried out openly. And we've seen the ambient background of the soft kill weaponry turned up against us, and now the acceleration of that intensifying. But here is the good news that I want to get across to everybody today. By taking the red pill and just looking at what is admitted and facing those facts, we have a chance, we have a good shot of turning this around, because there is not just the evil million-mile-long historical undead snake of tyranny that is slithering forward, but there's also other paths in human development. In fact, I wrote some notes on this subject this morning when I was reflective. There are competing forces, is the best way to say it. There are competing forces in this world. And I will say that I have taken the red pill to quite an extent. You know, you think you are enlightened, you think you're informed, and then you just learn even more, and the rabbit hole goes that much deeper. And it is extremely sobering and also extremely painful isn't even the word. I am now experiencing thought processes and understandings that are giving me emotions that I've never felt before. And the reason I talk about myself in this context is that we need to look through that lens so that you can examine yourself and really have it hit home that, wow, man, we've really been accurate. We've really assessed who the globalists are, and the fact that no matter how radical and wild I sound, the reality of what the establishment is doing is so much worse. The closest this feeling that is more and more dominating me, the closest I can describe it, is to the few times I've been really hurt bad out in the middle of nowhere, and a limb is broken or a finger's chopped off, or you're helping friends that are mangled. Is that cold, focused understanding of, we got to do something about this. We've got to just hold it together and stay focused, and there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And if you have that understanding, because that's the beginning of the feeling, not just the feeling, the mindset, the horizon-to-horizon view, then you see the general public, and you can't even laugh at them anymore. You can't even have a subconscious feeling of elitism because, they're so pathetic and, well, you know what's going on. It's far deeper than that, because you realize that you're connected to these people and that there's a feedback loop from them that you live around them and your children are going to grow up with them, and that their children are going to grow up around them, and that when the establishment, the social engineers, are hurting humanity and dumbing humanity down so they're more easily managed, and so no new power structures develop that might challenge the current power structure. You see that the evil the globalists are engaged in against humanity is blowing back on them, and then that becomes a feedback loop, and the evil just intensifies and intensifies, and that these globalists think they're getting ahead in the game because they're cheating. They're studying human psychology, they're studying how their species works, and then lying to themselves and saying they're a different species, and that's what they say in their own literature, and that they're all cold-blooded, and that they are scientifically carrying out this operation. But the truth is, when you study the top globalist technocrats themselves, they're egomaniacs on power trips who love the raw exercise of power, but who coldly do it on the surface and try to impress each other about how cold they are, when the truth is they're not cold at all. Because if you really get past ego and pull back and coldly and scientifically look at this, our species really has some beautiful attributes to it, some beautiful facets to it, and some great potential. We can reach for the stars, or we can fall into absolute bedlam and hell on earth. And just to realize that the ugliness and the fall of our species has just begun. And to come to the realization that for the majority of people, they're already gone. From birth, they were programmed by television. From birth, they were brought up to be shallow, insecure, vain, empty husk. And to see how pathetic and sad they are is a reflection of the fact that I'm pathetic and weak. And it is a horror story to sit there and look at it. Because when I look at the innocence of my children and their creativity and their poetry and their purity, and then I know that this world is already poisoning them and already hurting them, and then I know that humans tend to slouch towards destruction and ugliness without a focused force trying to amplify that, and to know the system is trying to hurt beauty and goodness and wholesomeness is such a vomitous paradox, because the evil is bad enough, but then when you see all the good and the potential of humanity set next to it, and you no longer even have hatred of evil, but a recoiling disgust of it, the evil in myself that I can't eradicate. And then I want to forge a system to defeat the globalist. I want to be able to build something to resist them. But then I've got to be in the world and work within the world to even be able to operate, and that itself is corrupting. I look at the general public now, and they're like children, little, spoiled, arrogant, but really scared children. And it's just torture. I mean, once you figure out globalist manipulations, I can read a book put out by the globalist to promote something they're doing, and before I turn the page, I know what it's going to say, because I've heard them say it 1,000 times, 100 different ways. And you're like, oh, I'm going to turn the page, and I know exactly what they're going to say. And then I'm going to turn the next page, and I know, not the plot, that's easy to guess. I know what they're going to impart. You know, there's a lot of news here that needs to be gone over. And listen, I'm not trying to be negative here. What I'm trying to do is to really get over to people that Nazi Germany was a nightmare. The Soviet system was a nightmare. The communist Chinese system was and is a nightmare. And the world is plunging back into something like that, but mixed with all sorts of nightmare high-tech systems. And when you really come to grips with the fact that world government and this system is set up so that really wicked, abusive people can hurt beautiful people and burn things and kill people and mutate the environment and mutate the genetics of the world's biosphere. It's just off the chart that it's all real and that we've been right. And it's the sickening realization. It's the sickening realization. And to know how it's all going to unfold, to see where it leads, to know where it goes, is so sad. And to wish that I could reach all these children, these adults, these childlike, scared little shallow people who have such great potential, but who have been ruined from birth with programming. Coming up, I'm going to talk about divide and conquer and how the media is going into overdrive right now to create racial division. And the new Quentin Tarantino movie that is the most pernicious use of the N-word ever, and how the system ties all that in together for control. I want to really describe what the term racism stands for. And then we are also going to get into some of the latest abuses by the TSA. You know, sometimes I wouldn't even call it getting depressed. Sometimes I do get down, though, because I'm supposed to just go on and go watch the Nutcracker, you know, with the family. And I'm supposed to, you know, go fishing with the kids. And I'm supposed to, and I want to, just go on about my business on the radio and make some jokes sometimes and have some fun, because that's what I do as a real person. But meanwhile, Obama continues to have torture sites all over the world. And he's been caught doing it. And it's admitted that they grab innocent people and then rape them, because that's what the people that work at the CIA and interrogation like to do. And the torture is illegal, so is the raping. They just do it, and nobody gets in trouble. And the police taser people to make them answer questions when the Fifth Amendment clearly states you can't be compelled to talk. And they are announcing the, quote, smart meters going in everywhere, increasing power bills on people, sometimes threefold, and tracking everything you do in your house wirelessly. And the government controlling what the temperature in your home is. I mean, that's beyond 1984. Along with the televisions. In fact, there's an Infowars.com article out today about Samsung TVs can be hacked. Samsung televisions can, quote, be hacked and can listen and watch you. Well, of course they can be hacked. They're designed with a back door under global technology regulations to watch and track everything you do. There's the headline. Samsung TVs can be hacked to spy on viewers. Security firm exposes dangers of so-called smart products. You know, when I hear the term smart, It'd be like saying, hey, cancer is no longer a problem. We call it smart. It's like calling the Patriot Act patriotic, or a government program to drug half the school kids, New Freedom Initiative. Would Hitler be an okay guy if we just called him smart? Or gonorrhea wouldn't be a problem. Hey, it's smart. You know, when you hear something smart, you better run the other way. Smart growth means the globalists come in and decide you can't use your property, so their property doubles in value. Means slavery. Smart means slavery. When the globalists attach it to something, it means it's surveilling you. It means it's a drone sitting in your house, watching you, recording you, and the entire architecture of the entire global system was premeditatedly designed 40 years ago when DARPA developed all this to be a control system. And you know, we need to be upset about that. We need to be upset about the fact that Obama said he was against the NDAA when his people wrote it, and then he said he wouldn't sign it so there wouldn't be opposition to it, and then he did sign it. Kind of like he said he was going to legalize marijuana when the states legalized it, and then he tripled the number of raids in states like California. That's been in the LA Times. Well, now he's talking to ABC News, and he says, we've got bigger fish to fry. He went on to say, it's not our top priority going after recreational users in states that have determined that it's legal. In 18 states where it's been made legal. But see, they're actually still doing all the raids. So the answer, he says, is not states' rights. No, no. I got bigger fish to fry. Yeah, you got bigger fish to fry, Bubba. Like the announcements by the top insurance companies this last week, and I covered it yesterday out of Bloomberg and AP, of the average premium on insurance doubling. They've already gone up over 20% just in anticipation. Now doubling, which is designed to bankrupt healthcare and bankrupt the American people. This is the forced collectivization, as the globalists have done in every other country, of 1/7 of our economy. And now the healthcare is government run to take away your care, but then also force vaccines on you. And they're now announcing all that. See, we've got to get upset and get out of our coma. We'll talk about it when we come back. Let me briefly break down my definition of what racism is. And then I'll get into some military news, some economy news, and we're going to go to your phone calls. The toll-free number to join us on this Friday edition is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. More and more Democratic politicians and operatives have been calling for beating up or arresting anyone that doesn't want the United States to be collectivized. So I wanted to get Larry Grathwohl, the FBI informant, who was in the Weatherman meetings with Mr. Ayers and others, when they talked about how they'd put 50 million Americans in forced labor camps once they collectivized the country and then kill half of the 50 million, 25 million people. I thought we'd tie that into Belafonte's statements about just arrest people like a third world dictator and throw those of us that don't agree into prison. That is coming up. Also, the health care issue. 15 states are opting out, or only 15 states are opting in to run Obamacare exchanges. The other 35 are just saying they can't even do it. The government's not even providing systems to. And see, that's exactly what all our experts broke down they were planning, because we've seen this done in third world countries and other countries the globalists take over. They set it up so it bankrupts the old system. And then there's a bigger crisis, and then they just fully socialize the health care, because the big dream is government wants to decide what care you're going to get and then say, oh, well, it's all collectivized. We're all paying for each other, even though you pay for your own insurance. Well, we're going to control what you eat now. And by the way, you can't get medical care if you haven't taken all the vaccines. See, that's now being announced. That's why they're just giving school kids shots without parental consent now all over the country. It's totally illegal. They don't care. It's illegal when the TSA drags your wife off to a private room and pulls her pants off, but they do it. You see, because it's about the raw exercise of power. Now, they've got this new Quentin Tarantino movie coming out, Django, with the sophomoric, decadent, near-collapse, imperial, type stuff that you would expect to see Quentin Tarantino involved in. I know he lives here in Austin. I was at an event once he was at, and a side issue. I'm not going to get off into the story. The point is that the movie is meant to invoke the same thing Machete did, where every white person is a racist piece of garbage and the illegal aliens are all angels, and white people line up Hispanic women who are pregnant and shoot them with high-powered rifles, splattering babies out of their guts. Meanwhile, conservatives actually want to stop abortion and understand the globalists are using the immigrants to come in and get on welfare to bankrupt the country and drive down wages. Well, put out by the same, movie house, the same production team, they come out with Django, where, as Jamie Foxx has said, I kill a lot of white people. Isn't that great? That's a quote. And the plot is out there on the web, what the movie does. And it's basically every white person is an absolute piece of garbage that gets killed. And so it creates kind of this cartoon history of what was really going on in the South and the Southwest. And just, reaffirms the propaganda that's put out. Because most of the public can't find their state capital. Most of the public doesn't even know what the Civil War was. So it provides kind of a cartoon, pulp fiction version. So the Drudge Report runs the headline off of another story pointing out that it has the most N-words ever used in a movie and is meant to create racial division. And the Daily Beast comes out and says, did notorious aggregator Matt Drudge go too far when he used the N-word repeatedly? He used it in a headline yesterday. And then they go over it and say, oh, yes, it's very horrible. This is the type of racism. And you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. He was quoting the movie and a report about how Django review most extreme or promiscuous use of the N-word ever heard in a mainstream movie. And that was out of EW Entertainment Weekly. So he quotes the article, links to it, pointing out that they use it over and over again, and he's the bad man. See how that works? See, when Jamie Foxx comes out and says, yeah, I kill a lot of white people, isn't that great? All of that is great. That's a wonderful thing. See, this is what racism has been turned into. It's called tribalism. And if you go to anywhere in Africa and there's, say, a river, and there's a tribe right across the river that genetically is basically identical to the tribe across the river, it doesn't matter. They fight over mining rights and fishing rights and farming rights, and there have been gang fights between them, and so they hate each other and kill each other. And you can go to the Middle East and find Shiites and Sunnis for 700 years killing each other, and they're genetically the same people. Or you could go to the clans of Scotland, going back hundreds of years ago and right through to today, getting in fights and killing each other, even though genetically they look just like each other, have the same culture, but humans like to fight with each other. So it's called tribalism. And one group will always use the fact that another group looks different to take them over and enslave them. It's popular in Newsweek, Time Magazine, NPR to make fun of anybody in the South and say we're stupid and dumb and ride horses to work and that we're idiots. And that's done just because it's popular and it's a form of tribalism that is seen as okay. I never really grew up hearing a lot of this, but I guess there's like the Pace Picante ads where they say, where's this sauce from, this hot sauce? Well, New York City, get a rope. So a lot of it's just campy, vestigial echoes of tribalism. But my point is, a lot of times it's about religion or it's about tribe. It's not even about race. So to call things racism is really a modern invention only used in the last 150 years or so. really all it is tribalism. Like our tribe, the Brits, going back 600, 700, 800 years ago, depending on which conflict, we're going to take over the Scots, or we're going to take over the Welsh. Or you could have the Normans out of France, who were really Northern Europeans that had conquered France, who were really Vikings, who came over 800 years ago and conquered everybody who was in England, who'd been conquered by the British, or the Brits. But again, the average person wouldn't even know any of this basic history. And the Normans said they were superior, and that the Anglo-Saxons were dogs and scum and ugly and spiritually deserved to be enslaved. And it was all just an excuse so they could dominate them and take them over and not give regular human rights to them that the Norman themselves would want. So when you have the liberation theology in the last 60 years put out by the Ford, Rockefeller, and Carnegie foundations by the CIA, this has all come out in the church committee hearings and others on the tax-free foundations, they said we're going to teach whites not to have tribalism. And again, you can say it's good, you can say it's bad. Whites on average were stratified, where the whites at the country club didn't associate with any of the white people and called them white trash. And then you had the religious snobs who didn't associate with the Methodists because they were Baptist. And the Baptists didn't associate with the Methodists because they were vice versa. Or the Catholics didn't associate with the on and on and on. It's all just snobbery, exclusivity. Humans break down into that. So the globalists come along 60 years ago, this is when it really intensified, and said, we're going to end all of this racism. And really what they're saying is we're going to end exclusivity and domination through class and create a classless society. Now, they were addressing at a barbaric level wrongs that were going on in tribalism along racial lines. And so that is wrong. But from the globalist cold-blooded perspective, they weren't trying to get rid of a tribalism to create some ecumenical utopian view. They were seeking simply to break down classes so that they could all be put into a homogenized, plastic, eugenics-based culture to destroy the family itself, regardless of what color you were, so that you could be rendered down and dumbed down to the level of animals so that you could not resist their scientific conquest. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's purely a weapon. Whites are brought up to be these knock-kneed, shaking, insecure, filled with guilt, loathing themselves with self-hate. Believe me, racism in white people is just unbelievably rare. What is not rare is people so insecure around other groups that they won't hire other people just because they're so scared they may do something wrong. You understand what I'm saying? But that's actually what the globalists want, is the division. You see, out of their false multiculturalism, they say, well, the Hispanics could be in something called the race. For those in the race, everything. For those outside the race, nothing. That's the Mecha La Raza slogans. I mean, that's literal Ku Klux Klan slogan, just reversed for Hispanics. But the media and all the Fortune 500, they fund that as a tool of control to be able to have racial leaders over those groups so the people won't value an identification with private property or guns or the right to defense or the right to religion, because they're afraid we would all get together for the right of religion, the right of self-defense, the right of private property. No, no, no. The only right is now to the racial heritage. And then if someone goes along with the racial heritage, you can then attach taking guns, shutting down society, as long as you dangle the racial tribalism in front of them. And it's the same thing where you have all the big black rappers and all the big black actors come out and say, whites are scum, blacks are God, we're going to kill you, and then have the anointed white, trendy, cool person sit there and clap, and then all the whites go, that's how I'm cool, is saying whites are scum, let's kill them. You understand how that works? And it's all scientifically done. It's all and then if you report on it, you're a racist. So it just boils it down to where there's double standards for a tribalism where the government does this. Listen to me carefully. The central social engineers, they come in as whites get scareder and scareder and then vote for more police, more control, and support, wink, wink, a real tribalism now to arrest those dangerous criminals, code word for Hispanics and blacks, who were then put into prisons set up, according to racial gangs, to get a 4, 5, 10-year diploma in criminality to come back out to actually keep those groups in criminal substrata. Now the whites are brought in as an inner party to serve out of fear the government that they see will protect them, while at the same time the government is actually radicalizing blacks, Hispanics, and others through the MTV warfare systems. So, to boil it all down, racism is simply a political tool that is hyped and pushed by the government and the media to create more division, but to also be selectively enforced and to be used to restrict the First Amendment. Just as Europe has gotten rid of free speech, you get arrested if you say a racial slur, and now they've got it down to saying if you criticize open borders, that's racism, and so you're arrested. You're arrested in Europe now, in France, in Germany, in England, you name it. But it's okay because it's politically correct. And then now you hear Harry Belafonte saying, hey, Obama, you know, maybe he needs to just arrest, like a third world dictator, people that disagree with him. You see, and then you get into it. It's amazing. By the way, we got some bad news. They were first reporting that they'd shot the shooter. And now it looks like at least one child killed and some others wounded. And the shooter is the father of the student. You know, I like Christmas trees and I like Christmas, but I don't like the big commercial stress and everybody's so stressed out. And I can just feel the bad vibes during the holidays. 27 dead. Okay, this is, and oh my God. And you notice at CBS News, you notice they kept this quiet for a long time with it cordoned off, always a bad sign like Columbine. If that CBS News headline is right, you notice this is happening right as the second term comes in, and Obama has said even if Congress doesn't act, he's going to physically try to take all handguns and rifles. And they're saying that this is handguns. Holy Toledo. You know, I told my wife this morning, I said, I'm feeling so much dread. I said, I have never felt in my gut, in my spirit. Will you put that back on screen, please? I want to read that to people. Man, they are really going to use this. And I'm sure there'll be the usual signs that it may be staged. If not, it's been copycat promoted by the media, and then the guy will be on Prozac or one of those derivatives. 27 dead, including 14 children, in elementary school shooting. Oh, sweet Lord. God, please heal this land. CBS News was reporting 27 people are dead, including 14 students, after a shooting at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown. The gunman is among the dead. CBS News, John Miller reports there is a preliminary information the gunman was the father of one of the students. Miller also says that at least a couple dozen people were shot. The shooter was killed and apparently had 2 guns. A person with knowledge of the shooting said the person spoke of a condition of anonymity because the investigation was still underway. It is not known whether the shooter took his own life or was killed. 2 students at the said the teacher were also injured in the shooting. They were taken to Dansbury Hospital. Spokesman Diane Burke said it was an orderly evacuation given the circumstances. Why didn't somebody have a gun in the school? Why don't they arm the teachers? Nope. The gunmen always go to the victim disarmament zone. They're going to come after our guns, folks. Get ready. Stay with us. Overall, mass shooting deaths are flat in the last 20 years. If you pull up Justice Department numbers, I'm going to have Kurt Nimmo and Adon Salazar repost those under a link to the CBS News. They are now saying 27 dead, and including 14 children at the elementary school. I know Connecticut has some pretty strict gun laws. We are just a very sick society. We've aborted 53 million babies now. I'm always using the 50 million number. It's grown. And we, make troops serve 5, 6, 7 tours until they break down. And so many people now are on Prozac-type drugs that they admit in their own trials caused in the Eli Lilly trials in 1980, a 15-fold increase in suicide and violent outbreaks. In fact, it's on the inserts now. They were forced about a decade ago, as you know, to put in the inserts of all the serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And I don't think I've ever seen a mass shooting that wasn't staged where the person wasn't hopped up on those drugs. And this could be real with all the, the culture of death and people being in on it. But if we start seeing telltale signs of it being staged, we'll let you know. It has now come out that it was a government program, and that person was in a mind control program, and the doctor he was under was a head Air Force mind control doctor, and he was involved in DARPA brain interface programs and told people he was under mind control in the jail. Theodore Krasinski, the Unabomber, was a part of MK Ultra. That's LA Times. So see, once you've seen this a few dozen times over and over again, and you notice the timing of it all, and the fact that the gun culture is the one area we're beating them. And if we beat them in any area, they fail. Despite all their propaganda, people know the government wants our guns to enslave us. And people now want guns because of the crazies and the violent people that are out there. Because you're good, and you have a right to protect yourself. But Obama has signaled that he may use executive orders, as he's done in other areas outside of Congress, to physically ban handguns and rifles that are semi-auto. And that will start a civil war. Not everybody's going to turn them in. And I've had a feeling of dread. Before the shooting even started, I talked to my wife this morning, and I said, I was saying at the start of the show, but this had already begun. We thought only the gunman was dead then. That I'm always honest with you. I never tell the crew this except every once in a while. The day before they had the fake bin Laden raid, I said, I have a really bad feeling of dread. And always something big happens. And it's probably something so big. They've got troops massing, U.S. troops are now announcing publicly massing in Turkey on the Syrian border. They're talking about bombing campaigns that they call peaceful. But nobody will show that when they kill a bunch of innocent Syrians. They'll only trot out these 14 dead kids. It'll probably be more now if they're preliminary, saying 14 dead children, 27 dead total. And they're going to come after our guns. So I moved our guest back 30 minutes, so I'll start going to your calls as soon as we start the next hour here in about 1 moment. But that's another reason I would never have my children. And I know they've set it up where it's hard to, not have your kids in government training camp. But I wouldn't have my children in public schools because they're advertised everywhere as the place to go when you want to commit suicide. Well, don't commit suicide. Go to a school and kill a bunch of people. And then these spoiled brat, people almost always on psychotropic drugs, they go and throw a fit, and they kill one person, and they throw a fit. They just start killing. And under the new Soviet model, I'm supposed to be punished because there's crazy people out there and turn my guns in. Listen, I've got the phone lines loaded with people from Connecticut. CBS News is reporting 27 dead, 14 children. I don't know if that's accurate. I pray to Heavenly Father it's not. AP just out is saying the shooter dead and one teacher. So we'll continue to try to follow all of this as it unfolds. But again, we can put that CBS News headline back up there. CBS News, 27 dead, including 14 children in elementary school. Just absolutely horrible. And public schools and other victim disarmament zones are advertised as a place for Prozac heads to go kill a bunch of people. And you always see this stuff uptick in the holidays. So much stress, so much pressure, so many people drugged out of their minds. All the more reason that we be armed to protect ourselves. Let's go ahead and talk to John in Connecticut. He's got some information. John, what do you have for us, sir?
Well, I've just been following online, and but what I was going to bring up was something you already addressed, and that was, the possibility of being a staged act, and with James Holmes saying that he was a Manchurian candidate. People like these who are doing these shootings being put in place by some agency or the government to promote a gun grab or keep the public in fear. Because this is happening like every week. It seems to be escalating, to happen more and more frequently.
Well, I know this, sir. When they stage these things, we know Columbine was staged. We need to go back and do a whole article on how they reported 4 different gunmen. There was 127 bombs in the building. Half the school was empty. There was a stand down. There were government mind control programs connected to both of the youth. They were both on drugs, the Ritalin, Prozac types, both. But now the Atlantic Wire is reporting there was also reports of a second shooter who may be at large. So it's always that same report. The Current also said there are unconfirmed reports of 2 shooters, 1 dead and 1 at large. And again, there can be false reports of that too, except, when somebody else opens the door, when smoke grenades get thrown from both sides, when the people are in government programs, when the police order stand down so shooters can go longer. If all these normal telltale signs start coming out, regardless, the White House is going to use this to go after our guns. You can absolutely bet it. And, man, people know. That's why they're out buying guns in record levels. Anything else, John?
I was just going to say, as soon as I saw that, I knew the next thing was going to be promoting a gun grab or taking the people's guns. And, before you talked about the Oklahoma City bombing, how all the children in the daycare were killed. Like, when this happens at a school, it only promotes the public. It only gets the public to support the gun grab even more when they see that their kids are in danger.
Well, yeah, you turn your kids over and then the school takes them off and gives them abortions and gives them shots without your consent. And it's just an insane, sick culture. And it is a violent, prone, degenerating culture, too. But, I mean, it's too late. People aren't turning their guns in. The globalists aren't going to stop that. See, they want to be able to stage big terror attacks and blame it on domestic groups and go around and arrest all of us. I mean, they've said that. Harry Belafonte said that. They're all saying it. And they're just not going to get away with it. And see, they hate the fact that they know their paramilitary police would have big attrition and wouldn't be able to carry it out. So they hate it. They're control freaks. Now, they are able, like Obama said, he's got bigger fish to fry. They can butcher the dollar, gut the pensions, run the country on the rocks, bankrupt the nation, shut down the power plants, ship all the jobs they can with taxpayer money overseas. So they're hurting the country as best they can. They just really want to put us in those forced labor camps, and really upsets them they can't get that job done. They really want to have their way with us in those. All right, folks, the Associated Press out of Connecticut is now saying 18 children dead. Out of 27 total, that's obviously going to continue to rise. This is going to be, it looks like the biggest school massacre ever. Boy, wouldn't you know, I mean, it's sick. You can go back in the last month, and I've said over and over again, and we've written articles saying, you watch, there's going to be giant school shootings. And all they got to do is get some mental patient hopped up on psychotropics and then have their psychiatrist tell them to go do it. And, of course, you know the Batman shooter. It's now come out in the Denver papers. And it's even come out in other mainstream news that he was in a DARPA mind control program. He had a top Air Force psych warfare chief over him. He was being paid a large salary as a graduate student to be part of the program. And they reported people letting him in to do it. He told people in the jail that he was under mind control, basically didn't remember anything. And the police said, oh, no, he was never around anybody for them to be able to hear that. When the first reports, they admitted that the inmates were getting upset because of all of his ranting. Yeah, 15 dead at Columbine, including the shooters. So that's 13 dead who weren't shooters. This is going to be a lot bigger than Columbine. 12 students, 1 teacher at Columbine. This is already 18 dead children. And it's got the telltale signs. Here's CBS News reporting that there were reportedly 2 shooters seen. And the Atlantic Wire is also reporting that. And I'll have another, once we know more tonight, I'll do a special report on InfoWars Nightly News about this. You know, I don't get into mumbo jumbo. I don't get into, you know, psychics and stuff like that. I think only about 5 times in 17 years on air have I had the type of dread. I told my wife last night and this morning, I said, I am having feelings of extreme dread. And not physical dread for myself, that our whole country is on the edge of a cliff. Our whole world is. And, you know, in my life, I've had, you know, I'm walking out of a store, and I'm like, why do I have this feeling of dread? Because it's always right when I have it. And I'm like, I'm in danger. Don't walk out of the store. And I walk out of the store, and somebody comes up and mugs me. You know, that happened. And I told my wife last night and this morning, I just said, I am just having horrible feelings of dread right now. In fact, when we only thought it was 1 teacher shot, you know, at the start of the show, I said, I just have horrible feeling. And, you know, I was telling my wife, I said, maybe it's the U.S. troops massing outside of Syria that they're announcing. And then I said, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's that U.S. to send troops, Patriot missiles to Turkey. The New American is reporting that 3,000 U.S. troops have been secretly sent back to Iraq. You know, the whole world is on the edge of major conflict. But you know, the reason my gut, my spider sense, we've all got it, is going off, is that if I have to put a finger on it, folks, it's just like I said, it's the realization of how real all this is. I'm going to go to your phone calls. Obama has signaled, the NRA has reported, to their credit, last year, you know, they talked about it, and also this year, that their sources, and now Obama has signaled this in the debates, that he may ban all semi-autos, physically holding them. He may ban all semi-autos, handguns, rifles, that's most firearms. Well, they announced last year they were going to ban 60% of shotguns, roughly, that are bottom-loaded, that are pump, even pump, not even semi-auto. If they could be converted to take a clip or to be converted to semi-auto, they were going to ban them. And the ATF said, it's just a regulation. We're having a public comment period. But Congress said, hey, you can't do that, so they backed off. Congress did their job, rarely, but they did it. Because, you know, the ATF just can't say we're taking your guns because we say we interpret policy this way. But Obama has said that he may use street sweeper language that is law and apply that to all semi-autos. And, folks, you can absolutely guarantee there will be a civil war. A death sentence to the police and military and citizens if they give this order, which may be the plan. And I'm going to be honest, I actually... Oh, man. Anyways, they're getting ready to make some big moves. You can guarantee that. Not just intellectually or geopolitically looking at all this. Man, my gut has never gone off this bad. Just pray for this country, folks. Pray for America. I know we're not perfect, but there's still a lot of good people in this country, and if we just had more time, we could maybe turn things around. If everybody wasn't in a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you got December 21st coming up, and maybe I'm just picking up on everybody else's dread and all the uncertainty in the world and all the things that are happening. Are you feeling it out there? All right, we've got a bunch of people holding who want to talk about what's happening. Let's go to Kevin in Connecticut on the shootings. He's got some points. Go ahead, sir. What's your take on this?
Well, I personally witnessed some really weird stuff going on today. We just happened to plan here at work like a little Christmas outing. We were all going to go bowling. So we went to Brookfield Lanes, which is, the next town. We pull in, Alex, and there's 4 school buses there. And we're like, what's going on? We walk in. It's wall-to-wall high school students from Newtown High School. They bust all those kids out of there. I don't know when they arrived, but I find it very odd that this shooting goes down, and they bust all those kids out of the high school. So they were already there. So they limited the number of people that were on site. Number 2, you look at the...
wait. Be specific, because more than half the school was not there at Columbine. 127 bombs were planted. There were multiple shooters. All that came out, but it was later, so people don't know. That was a government operation. So much evidence, I don't have time to go into it. People that want to research it can. If you have things like the school officials and people not there, their kids not there, that's telltale. But we don't. These are things to look for from past operations. If the guy had been in the military, if he'd been assigned a government psychiatrist, another big deal. But we don't know this yet. We're getting reports of multiple shooters. What are you saying? That children had already been bussed, not from this elementary, but from the high school before this happened?
Yes. And we were there before 10 o'clock in the morning, and the children were already in the bowling alley bowling. So they had trucked all those kids, bust all those kids out of Newtown High School this morning and brought them to the bowling alley. And then to make matters worse, if you look at all the news reports, they show the kids lined up with hands on each other's shoulders in a big line. There was reported 2 shooters. At first, it was going through the school system. My boss, who I work for, his wife works in the Danbury schools, right next to the major city in the area, and they had a rumor going through that there were 2 shooters. They were dressed as nuns. They hid the guns under their habits, and then there was one shooter loose running around right here where I'm sitting right now, trying to find him. And why in God's name would you put almost all of your high school kids sitting in a bowling alley and the other ones all lined up to be picked off if you got a shooter out there that's already killed?
Well, let me tell you how they do it. And the Russians have been caught doing this, too, with mass shootings. I mean, they've been caught in Beesline. We said it was a government op, and later it came out that it was a government op, but nobody got in trouble. Kind of like they caught the Russian government blowing up their own apartment buildings. I mean, these governments do this, but the Russians have been caught doing it. What you do is you send in one drugged-up person, dress the same, and then your people go in and shoot everybody, and then but you have the video of that other guy who thinks they're part of a drill, and that's why they can use these school shooting drills where they're unannounced, where they come in and scare everybody with guns and say, remember, they've had them where they say, we're the militia against public school. That's usually the federal drill, and the schools get in trouble with parents, and they say, well, we were just going with the federal guidelines. So they'll use people that they get to be part of the drill. They'll shoot real people, have the mercenaries go out the back door, kill the people that were part of the drill, and then you've got your school mass shooting. And that's how they did Columbine as well. Harris and Kleinbold were making a film about shooting everybody at the school. They'd done it before, sanctioned by the school. The new thing, the videos, all of it was part of the film they were producing. It was the same thing for the bombers on 7/7 in London, and that all later came out that MI6 ran that. But what else can you tell us there? Because, yeah, we have it in the local news about the multiple shooters.
Yeah, multiple shooters that allegedly were dressed as nuns. That's how they got on the property. That's the rumor that's going. It's an unverified report, a rumor coming through the school system, through the teachers, and that this is how the people actually got on the property. So what are we going to do? Ban habits now?
I'm physically ill, is all I can say.
I mean, is that what we're going to do? Is that what it's come to? And Alex, I'm telling you, man to man, if this guy came in and it was a lone shooter and he has to reload his gun, 27 people, I hate to sound macabre here, but 27 people, that's a lot of people to be shooting. His gun would have had to run out of ammo. I know you. I know me. If that, you know what, ran out of bullets, I'd be jumping on him and trying to kill him. And
well, I mean, take the case of the Congresswoman. Gifford's getting shot. People tackled him real fast.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm not bragging saying I'm a tough guy. I've had people pull guns on me 3 times, and every time I took the gun away from them and pistol whipped them. And I'm not bragging. I mean, that's what I did. But thank God I'm alive. I know I've got guardian angels. Thank you so much, sir. More calls straight ahead. All right, folks, we're back live here. I feel like we should say a prayer for all the children being killed around the world by the globalist. You know, it came out just yesterday, London Guardian, German government, the CIA torture bases, raping people, innocent people, torturing them. The raping is what they like to do, the globalists. They're not our government. They're criminal elements that have taken it over and used national security to protect themselves. Our government, on record, has done chemical, biological, and radiological tests on children, killed thousands of them just in one test alone, radiological experiments on foster children, 4,000 plus, you can look it up. Tens of thousands of pregnant wives of GIs were injected with plutonium, uranium, given plutonium, uranium pills. Whole wards of women were killed. You can look that up. Just type in, women given plutonium pills by Department of Energy. So, yes, they'll stage school shootings. They have the motive. They have the history. And Kurt Nimmo just posted an article. It's going up right now at Infowars.com with the headline that anti-gun crowd will exploit this. You can bet your boots they're going to do that. As Rahm Emanuel said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. They will use it. And my gut is, with the timing and everything that happened, this is staged. And, you know, I've been saying the last few months, get ready for big mass shootings. And get ready down the road. Al-Qaeda will blow up aircraft with shoulder-fired missiles. And the media won't even point out that they got them when our government helped them take over Libya and then Syria. And they're going to start their war against the American people very soon. The globalists have taken the country over. They want to start a civil war. And I've said on air the last week that I feel the danger level and I feel it, ladies and gentlemen. It is, I know I keep repeating this, it's just horrible. And it's like have you ever been in a car wreck and you're driving through the green light and you see somebody running it and you're going 30 and they look like they're going about 60? Because I've been in one of these wrecks and you know, oh my gosh, this is going to hurt. I hope, and the last thought is, I guess slam on the brakes, but I hope they don't T-bone me. And then it feels like 5 minutes as you're going into the intersection and the car smashing into you. The government could care less about children. In fact, they hate the fact that they're even born. They want to abort as many of them as they can. So just get that. When they're up there grandstanding and, well, see, Bob Costas, he was... Notice they had all this anti-gun stuff right before this. Right before Obama gets back in, not facing re-election, I said, look out. This is the kickoff. They're coming after the guns. Look for mass shootings. And we know they did Sirhan. That's been declassified partially. That was an operation. We know he was under mind control. This is real, folks. Let's talk to... Now we got a bunch of callers and other issues, but I want to go to William in New York. You got breaking news. Go ahead, William.
How are you, Alex? I hear you on this feeling sick because I feel nauseated just seeing this. To know, first of all, I want to, my heart and prayers do go out to the victims sincerely. These poor children.
Can you imagine somebody that could walk around, walking up the cute little kids in their little clothes and shooting them? I mean, I mean, it just makes me sick. But then we're supposed to not care about these kids, but not ones being smart bombed by Predator drones. Oh, those are just, you know, those are Muslims. Let them die. It's so sick.
But, I mean, the real sick thing is, Alex, I mean, if it is a globalist agenda, I mean, that's the really nauseating thing, and we are in trouble.
Well, I don't just sit here and, you know, just say it. It's the timing. It's all of it together, and it's the usual first reports. And it'll probably come out that whoever did it took their time, and there's always people in disguises, and then that gets... If they pursue people in the disguises and make a big deal out of it, then it might have just been some cult or nuts. But if it's, oh, forget about all that, then you know it's an inside job. In fact, here's some breaking news. Police believe there may be a second gunman. This is now officially confirming what witnesses said, and are looking for a red or maroon van with its back window blown out. So people shot at it. And, again, we know how they do this, sir. Go ahead.
I'd like to hit you on one issue. What is the signs that you're talking about, Alex? Because the signs that I'm seeing, I mean, we used to see crime scenes like this, you know, some years ago, maybe when we were kids. You'd see a lot of local police. Now you're seeing just, I mean, dominated by FBI and
no, that's the sign. That's the sign. There you go. There you go. No, it's always the same. Look, we need to talk to... I need to clear the phones, probably, because everybody's great, but I need to open it up. When they had the Blacksburg shooting, we had people on site. We have such a big audience. I'll explain it when we come back. Now, what we need to do here is... I know we got loaded phones, people on the shooting, people don't want to talk about traffic stops as well. Pastor Joan in North Carolina. I'll try to go to all of you, but we need to, after we go to these calls... We need to leave the phones open for people right there in Connecticut, because the police are now confirming what witnesses said about 2 shooters. So that shows this is organized. And if they try to blame it on a Patriot group, folks, you know it's staged. You know it's staged. You know, they staged the whole underwear bomber thing to put in the naked body scanners. That even came out in Congress. They staged Sirhan. That's come out. They staged Fast and Furious that killed thousands in Mexico, hundreds in the U.S. to blame the Second Amendment. And if we find out there was a drill at this school, and we've already had locals call in and say before this happened, they were already evacuating the high school, we need people on the ground out there with video cameras. We've seen a giant federal response taking over. They make everybody stand back for an hour while guys in uniforms and paramilitary commando outfits show up like at Blacksburg and places. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this thing stinks to high heaven. And if it turns out it's like the Batman shooter where some government psychiatrist is in control of the guy and it's part of some DARPA program, you just can't make that stuff up. It takes a lot of will to shoot and kill 18 children, 27 dead total, and that number's going up fast. They say there's a whole classroom missing. In fact, if you guys punch up on screen, drudgereport.com, we've got our own reports up at Infowars.com, screenshots of the troops and the background of this stuff. But if you guys can punch up just what I've got on my computer screen here, it shows the little children made, you know, crying, made to walk out with their hands on the other kids' shoulders. I want to remind everybody that the federal government pays nationwide to have drills at schools where unannounced they come in with guns and announce, we're right-wingers against public schooling. That's an actual quote out of the AP. Or we're, you know, and then the kids defecate on themselves, urinate on themselves, cry, break down. The teachers don't know. Sometimes these drills are unannounced. This is what they do to them. This is the mind control to demonize the Second Amendment. And we're going to have several guests today. I've moved one of them just to be on the nightly news just because this is so important. But I kept Larry Grathwohl on the show because he can speak to this. Vietnam veteran, 65 to 66 in the 2nd 502 Infantry 1st Brigade, 101st Airborne Division, former FBI Weather Underground informant, who quoted Obama confidant and former leader of the Weatherman as stating that those Americans who could not be re-educated in communist camps after the revolution would be eliminated in Mao Cultural Revolution. 25 million to be killed. And he authored the book, Bringing Down America, following his testimony before the Senate, and also appeared in the 1982 documentary, No Place to Hide, Larry101ft.blogspot.com. And we played the clip over and over again. I won't play it in the interest of time, of him talking about how they said we're going to bring down the country, bankrupt it, put people in forced labor camps, kill half of them. And then when I've been, and I played this on the Nightly News last night, in the interest of time I won't get to it today, but the video's up at Infowars.com, and I'll give you the headline in a moment when I'm able to pull it up, where I run into communists on the street and nicely talk to them. And they go, he said something nasty, let's get him. Like they lie to the other communists. It's all about deception. I'm like, I didn't say anything mean. It's unedited tape. And I go, you know, Stalin killed 50 million people. Communism's bad. And they go, too bad he didn't kill you. Yeah, we're going to kill you. That's the only time I caught it on tape. I can't tell you how many times I have been covering the DNC, covering whatever the case is, and I'm not even a Republican. And they walk up and will punch me in the back and go, ooh, didn't get that on tape, did you? And then say, listen, when we take this country over, I'm going to be over you in the camp, and I'm going to work you to death, and I'm going to rape you, and I'm going to kill you. Now, when 15, 20 times, I haven't counted it. I caught it on tape once. And now we've had Belafonte basically saying put people in camps like a third world dictator. They don't agree with Obama on Al Sharpton's show. You got to realize they'll do anything. If they'd ship guns into Mexico to blame the Second Amendment and still blame it on the Second Amendment, I told you, get ready for mass shootings. This will be the biggest one in U.S. history, magically, as Obama comes into his second term. I smell a rat. Regardless, let's play the clip of Rahm Emanuel, former White House Chief of Staff, saying don't let a good crisis go to waste. Here it is.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
Okay, there you go. An opportunity to do things you couldn't do before. So we know they're going to use it. Even though statistically more crimes committed in areas where they've taken the guns like Chicago and New York, more guns, less crime. And the answer is arm the schools. But see, they don't want that. They want these zones where they can wind up a crazy and march them in there, or have mercenaries do it, or mafia groups do it and kill some patsy. They've caught the Russians doing these fake mass shootings. Larry, what's your gut on this tragedy right now, and then tying it into a group that says they want to kill 25 million libertarians and conservatives? Would they stage a mass shooting to get our guns?
Well, first I want to say that I feel very bad for the mothers and fathers of the children that have died today, and I want to say that I really feel bad about that, and it's certainly in my prayers. An incident like this is not something that happens accidentally. It was planned, and these were kindergarten children that were killed. Now, I'm in California with my daughter, and my grandson is 5.5 years old. He's a kindergartner, and he probably comes up to about my waist. And to imagine two people walking into a school and killing 18 or more kindergarten children is just beyond belief. And you know that person is mentally deranged in some way. That's probably what he's going to use is his excuse for what he did. He probably has some psychiatrist that's already been trying to help him or not help him. We know that one of the people was killed. Apparently what they're saying on the news just before I got on this call was that they had caught another one. They had entered the building with full body armor. They're saying that the weapons used were .223 caliber. That's generally an M16. At first they were saying that the weapons were full automatic, but now they're saying that they weren't. Now, you can fire an M16 pretty fast on single action. And
this is why we need our guns, is to protect ourselves from this video game shooter-up Prozac culture that's linked to these psychotic breaks. But now it being more and more confirmed, two shooters, this stinks to high heaven.
Well, just look at the way the government is doing things today. It's always the victim that somehow is at fault. The Hassan thing down at Fort Hood, that's not a terrorist act. Well, he killed 13 soldiers and wounded, I forget how many others. Well, they're not trying him as a terrorist. They're trying him as an ordinary criminal, and the big argument about his beard. You know, we don't call terrorist acts terrorism. We call them man-made disasters. So, you know, what are we doing? Trying to fool ourselves by calling it something else? And what's this in Connecticut? You know, some nut goes into a theater who thinks he's Batman or something and kills a bunch of people, and then we find out that the psychiatrist had warned the school about him, but because he had quit school or was no longer a student, said, don't say anything. It makes no sense. It's totally illogical. And you're right. What they're going to do is try to use these things as an excuse to take our weapons away from us so that we're more vulnerable to them, the government, and more vulnerable to the criminals and the nuts.
Well, they're saying they think it might be a father of one of the students and then had an accomplice with them. I mean, how does a father get someone to premeditate, go in and shoot him up? But so many times when these are staged, there's a second or third gunman, but then that just gets forgotten and shoved aside. And just the timing of the biggest school shooting in U.S. history, right as Obama's coming in and saying he may use executive orders or other things to restrict and ban all semi-autos, not from sale, but from ownership.
Yes.
Larry, if they try to take the guns in this country, that will cause a huge conflict. That will cause a civil war.
I believe it will, because they're not going to take mine. And I know a lot of other people that say the same thing. It simply isn't going to happen. We have the right to bear arms. It's a constitutional guarantee, and no president has a right by executive order or any other means other than an amendment to the Constitution to take that right away from us. That would be like the president deciding that you can't be on the air anymore. It's called freedom of speech, and it's guaranteed in the Constitution. I don't know who this president thinks he is. Sometimes I think he believes that he really, truly is the Messiah.
Well, yes, he's told the Congress that NATO and the UN's over our military. He signed a executive order on cybersecurity and then won't let Congress see it. He's shutting down power plants outside of law. So we are all in grave danger of the dictatorial move that this country is slouching towards. But, yeah, I mean, I would advise the communist and collectivist, look, we know they want to put us in camps. Now the new Army Field Manual, we've given that number on air. Let's pull that back up, guys. Says re-education camp. We now see, you heard me before you came on, tell the story of what you'd call leftists. When they know your camera isn't on, they'll come bump into you and say, look, when we take over, you know, I'm gonna put you in a jail cell. I'm going to work you to death. I'm going to rape you. Those are the type of things they say. And I caught it on tape once. It's in my film Martial Law in New York, and I'm just talking to communists that are out there with their banners, and I'm totally polite to them, and they come over and say, you know, it's too bad you're not dead. We're going to kill you. Once we take over. And it seems that's their religion. It's like this fantasy of running camps. Now, you've been in the middle of these people. What do you make of Belafonte and his statements?
Oh, it's absolutely crazy. But it makes sense if you're an extreme leftist, a communist, if you will, or, you know, an extreme progressive. They want everyone to think alike. And if you don't think like they do, they're willing to do anything up to and including to kill you in order to gain control of the mass of the population. I encountered this with the Weatherman. I heard Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn and other people speak in meetings and in appearances. Right now, Bill Ayers is going around the country educating people on how we can become a new country. And, of course, that new country is a socialist country. So he's already concluded that Obama's second term is going to take us the rest of the way.
Well, you know, that's the issue, is that I know these presidents have become globalist puppets, but for the first time, I'm really understanding that, no, they plan a good old-fashioned communist takeover. They know they're destroying health care. They know it's doubling the premiums. They know it's all this. I mean, they are really going to totally gut everything and go from 25 million on food stamps to now 49 million to 100 million. And they're really getting arrogant now and bragging about it and coming out and saying, we're going to arrest you. You know, we're going to kill the white people. Just really trying to create race war. It's so evil.
Yes, and this administration has made that a focus. It is not about unity, it is about division. They're always ready to tell you what is different about you and the other person. There's no Americanism or patriotism that this administration isn't willing to stomp on. And I don't care how many times Obama gets up there and tries to act like he's a good, concerned American. You tell me how it can be that after 4 years, the unemployment rate is still almost at 8%. The real unemployment rate is probably more like 14% because of the number of people that have just given up.
Well, people are underemployed. Let me ask you this question. It's more like 25 if you look at the underemployed stuff. People working 2-3 jobs. And it's so cynical knowing that now tens of millions of employers are going to lay people off to part-time, so then they'll get 2 or 3 jobs, which will be counted as new jobs, so they'll say unemployment is lower. It's so evil and cynical. But, you know, obviously you're a combat veteran, you know, Vietnam, 101st Airborne. I can tell in your voice listening to you, because I've interviewed you many times, that there's an urgency in it. Everyone I know who's lived in the real world has an urgency now. At your gut level, have you ever had, because I know I'm having it, so I'm asking you, even before this happened today, do you feel the sense of danger and dread that I'm feeling?
Much more than I ever have before. Even when I was living with the Weatherman underground in rooms with cases of dynamite and C4, I have more fear today, not only for my life, but for my daughters and my grandsons and what their future is going to be.
So what is it? What is it? Because I'm trying to figure out why my spider sense is just off the charts right now. What's about to happen? What do you think's going on?
Well, I think, you know, just like Rahm Emanuel said, never let a crisis go to waste. I'm surprised that we didn't have one before the election so that Obama could use that. You can bet that the left is going to use this issue to try to take our Second Amendment rights away from us. They've already started trying to control the press. You know that. There's been all kinds of pressure brought to bear on programs like yours, trying to get them off the air. And I think what's happening is we're sensing that we're being attacked at almost every level.
That's right.
Not just at one level. They're coming at us with health care, with Second Amendment rights, with the UN trying to
with open borders.
Yes.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, they are moving on every front right now.
And that's why you feel that sense of dread, because it's as you look, it's like, where do I fight them? They're coming from everywhere. They're like cockroaches crawling up the wall. And the thing is that we knew that this was coming 40 years ago. I tried to tell people then, these guys didn't change their mind. When Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn surfaced and they said, oh, we were just an anti-war group, we never hurt anybody. That was BS. I was in those meetings when we planned on...
Well, the thing is, I've been around the communists, too. They're all about manipulating people. They're pure evil. Listen, we've got callers like Gary in New York has a cousin is a teacher in the school. If they were running a federally sponsored drill, inside job, you can bet your boots. And right now, after Larry leaves us here in about 10 minutes, I promise I'll go to callers. I know we've got people holding on other issues, and I want to talk to them. In fact, even get their numbers, and I'll get to them on the Sunday show or something. We need to open the phones up for people in Connecticut because, listen, don't put anything past these people to put a mental patient in there or set somebody up and have another team in there. We've caught them doing stuff like this before. This could just be some Prozac nut, crazy, but they started scrubbing articles, and Natural News is reporting on this. Eyewitness reports of second shooter now being scrubbed from the news, and people led out of the woods by officers, and a SWAT team now investigating the home of one suspect. And again, you've got reportedly a van that got its window shot out. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And we need to talk to people in the school before they get threatened. Was there a drill? A drill this week or a drill today? If that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, well, I study this, and it's a complex issue, but going back to Larry, our guest, Larry Grathwohl, looking at this and talking about, the dread, Obama really is trying to invoke as much division. I mean, I see articles here of ESPN saying that, well, there's a black guy that says he isn't into race issues, and that that we're all basically brothers, and they come out and say he's not one of us because he's not a Democrat. I mean, and they put this out on ESPN. Fox Sports comes out and says gun ownership is Ku Klux Klan. Bob Costas blames things on the Second Amendment. I mean, the fact that the rhetoric is so diabolical right now. This is a short segment. You could see them ringing, the bugle, basically, blowing the trumpet that the war against our liberties is starting, and the open talk now of collectivism, Larry.
Yes, and Costas, immediately after that football player killed his girlfriend, was on the air saying, it's time to relook at the gun control laws, and actually the team was talking about putting his number on their jersey that Sunday. That's Kansas City. And this is for a murderer. And you explain that to me. It's like it's not his fault. He played football. He had head injuries. He was taking steroids. It was not his fault. It was the gun's fault. And by the way, Alex, I'd like to mention that my book's going to be released again shortly after the first of the year, with some updates, of course, and it'll be on ebook if anybody's interested. Well,
listen, you're on the show then. I mean, we'll just book you for the middle of January, okay, if we're even still here. Absolutely. Right. We're going to do that.
You better be there.
You bet.
If you're not, you better be there. If you're not there, we're in deep trouble. The war's started.
Exactly. Folks, I want to get your comments on what's happening, your take, your ideas, news reports you're seeing. Go to Infowars.com. Go to Enemies of Second Amendment Will Exploit Connecticut Shooting, and comment in there, and I'll read your comments on air of what you think's going on. Infowars.com. Go to the top article, Enemies of Second Amendment Will Exploit Connecticut Shooting. They have these school drills now where they lock the school down so the shooter can take their time killing people. Or they tell them get there and curl up in balls so the shooter has an easier target. Newtown, Connecticut School District had recently installed new safety protocols. In a letter to parents, strict new guidelines were outlined for elementary schools. Man, I wouldn't put my children in a government training camp for all the money in the world. That's an advertised mass shooting facility. Larry Grathwohl, who is one of the informants that helped bring down the Weatherman, is on with us, and you don't need to hear it from him anymore. We have a video actually up at Infowars.com that goes over this. It says, a special report, Obama cronies want to kill and imprison Americans. And I have communists on tape, like 10 of them on the street in New York. I walk over politely, and I just start asking about communism, and they said, well, the communism is we're going to kill you. And you have to understand, folks, every communist I've ever been around, all they talk about is how much they look forward to killing people and how much fun it is to kill people, and they're always real wimpy people, too, that probably never been in a fist fight. Larry, what is it about really wimpy people, chicken neck, pot-bellied wimps, that they dream about killing people all day? I mean, yeah.
It's because they're gutless cowards. And, of course, it's much easier, such as in Bill Ayer's case. He sees himself as being the leader. He's not going to get his hands bloody. He's going to have other goons out there doing it for him. He's the brains, he's the doctor of education, and Bernadine's got her law degree, and all of that's what they do. They create these factions, these differences amongst us, and then that even if they're not manipulating it directly, that there's some nut out there listening to this stuff, and finally he says, "Oh, I've got an idea," and he goes out and he kills 26 people at a school, and it's predictable. You know that is going to happen, and that's exactly what Obama and his cronies have created in this country.
Oh, they're going to hype this up, and I predict there'll be some more school shootings now from real nuts, because when they hype this stuff, it creates copycats.
Yes, I agree. And it's, again, you have to be, some kind of mindless lunatic to do what this guy has done today. 18 kindergarten.
Unbelievable. You've got children and grandchildren, and you say you're spending time with your 5-year-old grandson. I mean, I've got a 4-year-old, and she's so innocent and good. It makes me cry sometimes when I'm reading a book, just because she's so good. And I just can't imagine people that would shoot children like this.
Me either. And I think you got your hands full today, because this is what everybody's going to want to talk about, and rightfully so. And I hope that there's enough people out there listening to remember that it's not the gun that did it, it's the person that did it.
And we ought to ask ourselves, what's happening to our country that people are this deranged? That's why we got to have the Second Amendment.
Yes.
So people can't march around. The answer is like the Israelis have M16s in lockers in all the classrooms. The answer is arm the schools.
Yes. Where they have allowed people to get carry permits, the crime's gone down. And you know why? Because all of a sudden the bad guys don't know if you've got a gun and that you're going to shoot back.
They're such cowards. They're such cowards, the type of people that do this stuff. I mean, they are just
I agree. I agree.
I mean, I know there's a hell, because, the universe, it's an absolute rule that these people got to be. How would you want to kill children?
No way. I can't imagine it. In Vietnam, I remember if we saw children in the area, we stopped firing, even at the risk of our own life. You just, you can't even imagine it. And that's as a soldier, when you're under fire, when you're under threat of being killed.
Hold on, finish your story, and then we'll let you go. We're going to come back for 2 more minutes, then go to calls, I promise. All right, listen to me carefully. If you were in Connecticut or have family there, we need to know, was there a drill? We've confirmed they had started new procedures and security drills in the last few months. Was there a stand down? That's beginning to emerge. Multiple shooters. They're trying to expunge evidence of that, but the police have now detained, looks like 2 different people. Shot out the back of one window. They've been looking for a van with a red or maroon van with its back window blown out. They've also reportedly caught somebody in the woods. Might have just been somebody out there playing hooky. We'll find out. They've also SWAT teamed somebody else at their home they believe may be involved. The witnesses are saying they saw this. All I know is they're going to use this to come after our guns. Larry Grathwohl, of course, Army veteran, FBI infiltrator into the Weatherman, and was able to bring out a lot of the evidence that sent him to prison. And the reason we were going to have him on today is Belafonte, Harry Belafonte, and all these people are on the news saying, it's fun to kill white people, like Jamie Foxx said. We need to be like a third world dictator and put people in jail. And again, that's what the communists do. They cause division. And it's this liberation theology. And we have footage up at Infowars.com, special report, Obama's cronies want to kill and imprison Americans. And I'll walk over politely to communists and say, hey, what does your communist sign mean? Go away. Did you hear him? He just said something very nasty to me. That is very nasty. And I didn't say anything. And they come up and I go, well, what communism? Stalin killed tens of millions of people. Too bad he didn't kill you. Yeah, we're going to kill you. And folks, that's happened to me over and over again. So I had him on about that. But we were getting into the fact that why are they coming out with all this? And if they'd stage Fast and Furious, folks, they have a history of staging things or provocateuring things or knowing something's going to happen and letting it happen. And they did this in a victim disarmament zone where people know folks are disarmed. Look, notice the timing of this. When Obama's saying he may use executive orders to go after our guns. So I'm gonna give the number out for people that are in the area with your reports. 800-259-9231. You need to video those reports now, put them on YouTube, or you need to call us, 800-259-9231. Guys, give me the office number. People can't, I know we have several. Give me the office number that our customer service is answering, so that people, if they call our office, if they can't get through to us, they can give us comments, or they can go to Infowars.com and go to the latest article we've posted, Enemies of Second Amendment Will Exploit Connecticut Shooting. There's no registration needed, folks. You can just comment there. You can register if you want, and tell us what you think about what's happening. And one guy says not everything has to be a conspiracy. I agree. But they will use this to take our guns when Larry Grathwohl just pointed out everywhere with concealed carry crime goes down. In countries where they have guns in the schools like Israel, no school shootings. Okay, we need to arm the people in the schools, period. Where are the police whenever this starts? They always run now under new procedures, the new safety procedures. The old days were go up in the UT Tower, kill the guy. Now the new procedures are go back, call the feds, stand down like Blacksburg, wait 2 hours, well, it's actually almost 3, till you go in. Larry, you know, you're a combat vet yourself, worked in, you know, in support of law enforcement. What's your view on these new socialist government policies of telling cops stand down, run out, get back up? I mean, if I was a cop and somebody was shooting people, I'm not going to go get back up. And I'm not saying I'm a tough guy. I know what I'd do. I've intervened before when people are being robbed and stuff. I'm not going to tell tough guy stories, but it's not that I'm a tough guy. I guarantee you that if somebody was shooting kids in a school, I would creep up on them and jump them. And we see examples of that. I mean, I'm ranting here, but other comments on this, and then finish your story that got cut off about when you were in the Army and, you know, what you went through to not shoot kids.
Well, I think I can start with that. There was times in Vietnam when we were under fire, and if we saw children in the area, we would cease fire for fear of hitting them. And our own lives were in jeopardy. I can't imagine being outside of a school and knowing that there's something dastardly going on inside that school and standing down. I'd have to go through the windows. They'd have to kill me too, because I couldn't live knowing that I had sat there and not done something. And that's what you're saying, Alex. You have to do something. And these new rules of engagement that they have are designed to allow these kinds of catastrophes not only to happen, but to be bigger catastrophes than they were 50 years ago. You know, that guy in the tower in Texas, he killed some people, but he didn't kill nearly as many as 26. And they went up on that tower and killed him.
They didn't even wait for backup. 2 police, along with a citizen, and I've interviewed one of the police that killed him, became a Texas Ranger. They just charged in. The guy shot him. They killed him.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you do it. And that's what, you know, I mean, let's make rules of engagement and make it more difficult for the police to do the job. And I'll tell you, in 99% of the cases, them men are going to want to do exactly what you're advocating. There's only going to be a small number of them that want to wait and read the rule book. Most of them are going to want to go in and do
Listen,
something.
if I was driving by a school and a shooting was going off and I didn't even have a gun, I'd go in there. And that's not because I'm a tough guy. I immediately want to rip the head off of somebody that's shooting kids. I mean, I never fantasize about violence, but when I hear about whoever shot these and killed these 18 kids, I mean, I am just thinking about what I'd do to them.
Yes, and you know that it's not a public duty. It's not a tough guy. It's that I want to do something to protect the innocent people, and I don't care if it's adults or if it's kids. If something like that's happening, I'm going to do what I can to help without thinking about it. That's just part of my nature, and I think that it was what made this country great at one time, and what's happened is we've become so fearful for what it is that might happen to us if we act, and that we're so afraid of the differences that we've been told we have that we no longer do anything. We're like sheep standing there watching.
That's right, and people wait for the specialist to do it. The average cop now stand down while the SWAT team gets their gear on, drives over here for 30 minutes, and then masses in their camo. You know, I mean, you know, those guys just had gun belts around them, no body armor, ran up the tower and killed that guy.
Yeah.
And yeah.
What do you need? What do you need SWAT for? Don't those police officers carry guns? And they have them for a reason. And protecting innocent people is part of it.
Larry, thank you so much for spending.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
And you're going to be on to talk about your the reissuance with your book updated. You're going to be on with us in January. We're going to put.
Okay. No problem. Listen, good luck today. I know you're going to be busy.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
bye. We're going to go to your phone calls now, folks. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. Do you have any information or tracking the news? 800-259-9231. What is your intel from this town, this area? If you have family, call them, find out, and call us. We're leaving the phones open for you. I'm going to go to Gary here in a moment. Here's Paul Watson's new article. And this just makes my blood boil. You knew the ghouls wouldn't even wait a couple hours until they tried to, these people that have bodyguards. I've had Michael Moore's, this is on video in martial law, try to stop me filming him from 50 feet away in the streets of New York. Actually, the same day those communists said they wanted to kill me. And it's all on tape. Come up and start ramming their elbows into me. You know what I did when his bodyguards did that to me? I just rammed my elbow right into them. You know what? They were big, so-called, you know, tough guys, and you know what? They backed off real quick. Oh, you're gonna hit me with your elbow? Here, how about you? How about I just ram my elbow into you? How do you? Oh, you can watch it on tape. You can see they started getting back, and it's not that I'm a tough guy. You're gonna come out to me, and I'm not even around Michael Moore, and ram your elbow into me? How about I ram my elbow into you, punk? And they had guns, by the way, bulging underneath their shirts. So this pig, Michael Moore, this self-propelled goblin, he wants your guns because of this. Michael Moore calls for strict gun control after school massacre. Piers Morgan implies that all handguns should be banned. Infowars.com, prisonbunna.com. Filmmaker Michael Moore quickly seized upon the tragic shooting massacre in Connecticut to call for strict gun control, while CNN host Piers Morgan implied that all handguns should be banned, except in the hands of the government. And remember, he's from England where they've banned guns. Liberal talking points wasted no time in exploiting the horrendous events this morning at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, where 18 children were amongst the 27 killed to push their political agenda. Now, we need to add the Rahm Emanuel clip in here, and it's got it all there with the tweets of the pig, Michael Moore. Let's go to Gary, who has a cousin who is a teacher at the school. Thanks for holding. Give us your information, sir.
This country is going to hell in a handbasket, Alex. I'll try to make it quick. I was in the barbershop. I got a text message from on my phone about a shooting at an elementary school. I live in New York. I went to college in Connecticut. So I called my roommate, who I went to school with, to make sure his daughter was okay. And then he told me that the school was in Newton. He was in Waterbury. And then my mom texted me, and she said, "Oh, my God, that's Kerry's school. Kerry's my cousin." So I told him to put the news on at the barbershop, and they said, "Oh, I bet you're going to think it was an inside job." And I said, "I'm not saying that it was, but I wouldn't put it past them." And they were like, "Why would they kill innocent children?" And I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "Abortion, vaccines, and poisoning food and water. These people are Satans."
Yeah. Why did Hitler blow up the Reichstag? To get control. Why did government stage these things? To get our guns. I mean, why can't people get that through their head?
I don't know, and it's so frustrating. I live in New York City. We're not even allowed. You have to jump over like 300 buildings just to get a hunting rifle possession permit, and it's out of control. So there's not a gun culture here unless you're unless you're a criminal. Then of course you can have the gun. And I was telling them how Giuliani last night, Piers Morgan with his propaganda, actually said that people should be able to have guns and protect their families in their houses. So we put on CNN, and this is when there was only 2 or 3 people dead. And I see the scroll, the ticker underneath.
Hold on, I want to hear this. We got a bunch of other callers with information. We're back, and I've been monitoring the news. It is a firestorm. They want total bans of all semi-autos, just as we knew they would do. You've heard me say, look for a big mass shooting at schools. You've heard me. We've got to find the clips the last 2 months. I've probably said it 20 times. We've got loaded phone lines, a lot of police officers calling in to give us their take on what's happening. It's more than these dead poor children. You got to go with your gut, man. My gut tells me I've never felt this freaked out. I told my wife that last night and this morning. And I really think they're going to try to come after the guns. It's going to start a civil war. The globalists don't care if a bunch of police get killed trying to do this, by the way. Man, we're in trouble. We got to pray for this country. There's got to be some way to avert this. Finish up your point about what you saw on the ticker, Gary, and then we're going to go to others. Go ahead.
You know, when your gut's talking to you, I know you agree with me. It's God talking.
Sure, your phone's not that good, so finish up.
Okay. So we see the ticker, and it says 22 children stabbed in China. I said, I guess they should want to ban guns, too. And the guy says, you're crazy with your gun culture. And I said, no. But the Second Amendment was put in to govern the government and protect the people from tyranny and protect other countries from invading our country. So then I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my cousin, and she's a mess. So she can't really talk to my mom. My mom ends up talking to my uncle. Now, all of this is from my uncle who got it from my cousin, relaying it to us. She was in her classroom. She's a fourth grade special ed teacher. She's in her classroom. The principal is out in the hallway. He stops to talk to somebody. And the next thing she knows is she hears gunshots. So she grabs the girl that was with her at her desk, and she brings her into the bathroom, and she tells her, we got to be really quiet until the noise stops. So the noise ends up stopping. Now, CNN says there was 100 shots fired. Now they're saying that there was 2 handguns fired. So I don't know too many handguns that are gonna release 100 shots.
Sure. What else did she say? What else did she say?
Well, she took the girl after the shot stopped, and when she came outside and crossed the hallway, she had to step over the principal who was murdered, and then she left the school. She's freaking out. There's 18 children right now that are unaccounted for, not including the ones who were murdered.
Yeah, that's the report we're getting right now. This could be 30, 40 dead kids. We pray that's not the case. These little angels. Here is our hotline number for people to call and leave messages with their numbers if you're in Connecticut and can't get through, or later in the day, anybody needs to call us with any eyewitness reports or anything like this. 512-646-4417. Please, folks, don't call up with other issues. 512-646-4417. Now, I've got people calling in with all sorts of information on this subject, but get a hold of your cousin when she settles down and get her to talk to us for any other information. We need to know, were there any drills that day or the day before? Does she know anything? Did she have anything about other shooters, or was it that she never saw the shooters?
Well, I had asked them if it was supposedly because they have a lot of security at that school. You have to ring a doorbell in order to get into the school.
Yeah, of course, which is another sign of that. Yeah, it's one of these federal model schools.
The thing that just scared the daylights out of me, I had a call right away, is I asked them, did they ever train for this? And my uncle said yes. Within this school year, since September, they have trained for incidents like this.
Well, that in and of itself isn't the proof of it, but they can use a drill to then bring in a patsy. It could just be a Prozac head. We'll find out. God bless you, sir. I appreciate your call. Stay in contact. We're going to go to Rob, who says emails released prior to the shooting. We're looking into that. We're going to go to Chris in Connecticut, police officer. Let's go to Chris first. Chris is listening on shortwave. Chris, tell us what you know.
Hi, Alex. I'm just watching the news now. I guess the shooter's name is Ryan Lanza. He's a resident of Newtown, and his mother was a teacher there, and looks like she's one of the dead, from what the news reports are saying.
So a spoiled mama's boy? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. But the reason I called, as a police officer, I was kind of upset with you talking about the stand-down issue. We've been trained for many, many years now, since Columbine. We go in with what we have, and we've been trained with patrol rifles. We have rifles. We gather up the whole shift and make entry now.
Sure. What happened in Blacksburg then where the feds show up and order the police not to go in?
I can't speak on that. I'm just speaking on my experience as a police officer. I'm trained to go in, take care of the active shooter immediately. We don't sit and wait anymore. There's no orders of that from my superiors. There's nothing like that.
Well, that's good. Chris, stay there. I'm sorry. I got to go to break. It's a hard break. A local break. We got to go to it. Stay there if you can. I'm going to come back and give you 2 minutes to finish up any other points. Then we've got another police officer, Sean in Nevada, wants to give us their take on this. Pete in Long Island reporting second shooter, CBS. Yeah, we got that. I want to hear about these emails, too. Stay with us. Jacarni Jackson was researching drills at the school and just found, linked in a Time magazine article, a school Twitter photo of the little kids lined up just a few months ago in a shooter drill, and they're just so tiny, these kindergartners. But then it makes me think about all these wars and these drones where they say they'll kill 200 people at a wedding, including little kids, to get one bad guy, and that's collateral damage. So don't ever think the globalists that have hijacked this country wouldn't stage something like this. They kill little kids all day, every day, and it's not our government, it's the globalist. And all I know is thousands of people have died in Mexico from Fast and Furious, many of them children. So don't ever think this couldn't be staged. Now, I've said this guy's, 20 years old, who they're saying the shooter was. And I was literally saying, look up his age. I bet he's 20-something, a video game, active shooter, addicted Prozac head. If he's not a staged event. And again, I'm not saying you're evil if you play video games, but I'm giving you the profile of real shooters we've seen are these nihilistic, devil worshiper, mama's boy types who do this type of stuff. If you want to profile somebody, it's generally white or Hispanic male. It doesn't matter. I'm not even going to get into it. I'm just so sick of it. I'm going to shut up and go back to the police officer in Connecticut real quick. Chris, anything else you want to add you think people should know about this?
Well, I think we got to learn to protect ourselves and our children better. You know, another gun-free zone taken advantage of, Alex. You know, it's just time to harden ourselves and harden our schools and really get serious about security and not harm. I know the liberal media is going to go after the guns, and it's not the guns issue. It's being secure in our lives.
We've now confirmed that they began to tweet minutes after when they didn't even know. I mean, they are like ghouls just ready to jump on this.
I mean, now they're showing the kid. I guess he was 24 years old. They're saying now he's not a 20-year-old. He's a 24-year-old. The shooter that's dead. And like I said before, I guess his mother was a teacher there, and she's amongst the dead. So and it's going to be something to see it unfold. But I just wanted to make sure I got that point out there. We're trained to go in, Alex. And as far as the stand down issue, I know statewide we're trained and ready to go.
What about the reports of the van with its windows shot out and other people, another guy being SWAT teamed?
Well, there was another guy that got in the woods. I guess he was in camo, and you know, they're just saying when he was being dragged out of woods, witnesses heard him say, "I didn't do it," and they have him secured somewhere away and being interrogated right now. But I guess they went to the shooter's mother's home, and I believe it was in Newtown, and they found her dead on the floor at home.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and the more the media advertises this, if it isn't staged, they hype it. And everybody knows criminology, that when they hype this enough, other people who will decide to commit suicide, the new way to commit suicide is go out and shoot a bunch of people and have the cops then kill you. And I don't know why these cowards don't just shove a gun in their mouth and kill themselves. Why do they have to go kill a bunch of kids in the process?
And they're targeting gun-free zones too, because they know that it's going to be a long time before anybody attacks them. You know, we can't sit by like sheep anymore, and we gotta defend ourselves out.
Well, look, if you can have police outside movie theaters, you can have them in these big public schools that are targets. If they're not going to arm the principals and people. But then they'll put the police in and have you there doing other stuff with the kids, you know, turning it into a police state. But, I mean, you just imagine that this is the advertised place to go kill kids, and we're 310 million people. You know, there's only a few hundred of these demons out there, but They're just out there. God bless you. I appreciate your point, sir. Let's go to Sean in Nevada, who's a police officer, then to Rob. Sean, you're on the air. What's your take on this?
How you doing, Alex? Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Chris just said. I actually train officers in the response to these what we call active shooter events, and he's absolutely correct. After Columbine, they realized that response was absolutely wrong. That was how people were trained prior to that event. That was the first mass shooting like that in the country. The training at the time was wait till SWAT gets there. Well, SWAT's going to be too far away. Officers are trained to go in and two-man cells, 3 or 4 if they arrive, and actively seek out the shooter. They are trained to actually, as harsh as it sounds, to bypass victims. And we do drills. We have role players that are on the floor wearing
well, sure, because if you give them aid, then the shooter's going to come up and shoot you and keep killing people.
Well, they're trained to track this person down, to go towards the shooting, find the shooter, and eliminate them. Then the rescue effort starts, the searching starts. So that's how they're trained. So as far as the stand-down issue goes, wherever you got that from, that's misinformation. That's not how we're trained. If that happened in an incident, it was completely and totally wrong. In fact,
I hear you. I know they've changed it, except when the feds get involved, like Blacksburg. Remember that a few years ago in Virginia where they sat there for over 2 hours again because the feds said we're in control of this?
Well, I mean, I don't know who would listen to that. I wouldn't listen to it. Like you said yourself, if kids are in there getting killed, I don't know one single officer that would not go in on duty or off duty by themselves to take care of that incident. In fact, Force Science News is an organization out of Canada that analyzes police shootings and that kind of stuff and these kinds of events. They just came out with a report this month in their newsletter that recommends, based upon statistics, no longer even doing a 2 or 3 officer response, waiting for them to get there, that a single officer response is better because statistically, it's almost like a trained or ingrained response to these people. When they are confronted with police, they either kill themselves or they give up. We see that repeatedly.
Well, only the ultimate coward would want to go kill children, so of course, and then some of this, like the Batman shooter, I mean, that whole thing is psychotropic drugs up one side and down the other. You can't debate it. Thank you so much, sir, for your call. We appreciate that, Sean. You know, you hear these police, they really sound like good men, don't they? But then you got the government on top of them that's as corrupt as the day is long. And if they try to come for people's guns, folks, it's going to be really bad news. I'm just having so much dread right now. And I just think, it's when you got small children, this really gets to you. That's why the globalists use children's deaths to go after our guns, because they know it gets to us. You know, these liberals would rather have the children aborted immediately, but if they can, you know, if they can use them being killed by these shooters, then that's even better for them. Rob in New York, I'm going to look this up. We've been looking. I haven't found it yet. Where'd you find this emails release prior to shooting? Tell us what you know about that.
Yeah, how's it going, Alex? I was just watching Channel 7 ABC News on Long Island, New York, and I was wondering about the coincidence that they were saying that there were emails sent out to family members just recently. They didn't say an exact date, but it was saying in the emails that this is the same exact situation to be on the lookout for.
Say that again?
That this is the same exact situation to be on the lookout for, these emails.
Yeah, I know they announced it, said a few weeks ago, new security procedures, and you had to get through a gate and all this, basically turning it into turning the whole thing into a prison. But we'll continue to look at that. Anything else you'd like to add, sir?
Yeah, I was just wondering, it's a coincidence, or what is there a connection, is a correlation? Is that the idea that this person got, because of these training drills to go and do that, or is I just,
All I know is that, and I appreciate your call, because I've read a lot of criminology books because they're so interesting. When I was younger, I read them because they were interesting, but later in life, I realized it was important. Criminals love to brag. That's one thing everybody knows. But another big thing is crazy people, every time they had somebody jump off the Empire State Building or jump off the World Trade Center and be on the news, immediately they'd put police up there before they built the big fences because crazies would show up and want to do the same thing. And then it would cause a cascade of, some of the cases, 4 or 5 people in a week would jump off a skyscraper. And it happens in Dallas, Chicago, everywhere. And it's the same thing. A lot of times if you have a bank robber robbing things in a certain mask, if it happens enough, other people will go get masks and do the same thing. And people are highly suggestible. Ryan Lanza, ID'd as Newtown school shooting gunman. He looks like a hipster. Oh, I bet money that guy was on a bunch of serotonin reuptake inhibitors. The alleged gunman appears to possibly point to the wrong man. Ryan Lanza lists his hometown as Newtown, but indicates he mostly recently raised in Hoboken. So who knows if that's even the right guy. What publication is that out of? The Inquisitor? All right, we'll continue. Look, you better know this. All day at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And throughout the weekend, I'll be filing reports. They will use this to come after our guns. And it makes me so angry at Michael Moore and Piers Morgan and people like this. Because they know that mass shootings are flat in the last 20 years. They know that overall crime is much higher in areas where they've restricted the Second Amendment. And they're really angry that the gun culture is starting to take hold here. And all I can tell the police is you better let the feds know. Because, I mean, let me tell you something. People are not turning their guns in. And if they tried to get the police to do that, it is going to cause a big problem. And I don't want that to happen. We're going to skip this network break coming up because this news is so important. Plus, we have this report we've worked on for weeks, breaking down the fact that 2012, December 21st, is not the end of the world. We've got this that Aaron Dykes put together with myself. We're going to air that in a moment. We've got CBS second shooter reporter. We've confirmed all those reports. We're going to go to you. Bill in Connecticut says next town over from resident. We're going to go to him in a moment. I'm going to take a break here and play this special report on 2012 because a lot of you tuned in today to hear it. And I'm going to compose myself here. Because, you know, you heard me a few days ago with Mike Adams say this stuff's really starting to get to me. And I'm torn because I end up thinking about this all the time and working all the time till I'm like a zombie. And then I can't take off to recharge my batteries because all I'm doing is thinking about this. And I'm not trying to whine on air. I just... This country is in so much trouble, that's all I can say. And, you know, we need to boycott Piers Morgan, we need to boycott Michael Moore and all these other people that use stuff like this to try to take our rights. America is America because of the First and Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment. And Melissa Melton's got an article coming out on Twitter where they're calling to murder the head of the NRA and calling to kill gun owners and more of this stuff. And the collectivists are just so lazy and stupid and fad-driven. They are just dumber than a box of rocks. All right, here is the special report, really the inside scoop on 2012. Is it the end of the world? Well, here is our take on it right now. We have been told the end of our world will occur on December 21st, 2012. As 2012 draws to a close, will it be the end of our species, the end of our world, or just the beginning?
In case you haven't heard, the world is going to end in 2012.
December 21st, 2012.
The Mayan calendar basically predicts that the world will end in 2012.
The world is not going to end December 21st, 2012, coming up in just a few days. It is a hoax. It is a premeditated fraud. No Mayan scholars, no archaeologists have ever come out and looked at the Mayan prophecies in the Mayan calendar and said that it states there's going to be an end of the world. The whole thing is a 30-plus year manufactured hoax, a total and complete scam. And we're going to break down exactly who is behind it and why the mainstream media has been peddling this for decades.
Did the Maya think the world would end in 2012? No, they didn't.
Now, the Mayan people are fighting back, saying that the idea of the world coming to an end in 2012 did not come from their calendar.
But where do we find the modern end of the world 2012 cult beginning? New Age thinkers like Terence McKenna and Robert Anton Wilson launched what has become the 2012 doomsday hubbub in the 1970s. They simply used the Mayan date to launch a kickoff of the New Age scenario to garner attention to their other Illuminati New Age writings. Robert Anton Wilson, in his book, The Cosmic Trigger, said that there would be a scientific quickening similar to what Ray Kurzweil says, and that the singularity would begin to happen on December 21st, 2012, and he used the Mayan date as a symbolic trigger for all of this. But there were countless other New Age gurus and establishment-connected types who came out over the next few decades and continued to push this idea that the world would either physically end on December 21st, 2012, or that a new age would start at that point. And that is exactly what we are seeing being promoted and being pushed right now. This end of the world business is a reoccurring theme throughout history. And it gets people to cop out and to not be involved in their daily lives. It makes you have a feeling of powerlessness. And governments and different institutions have always been happy to promote this. The establishment for hundreds of years has gotten Christians to not be politically involved because going back to the time of the Gnostics, they always believed the world was ending next week. It is a total system to cop out. It is a manufactured superstition. Just as Christians are given the rapture as a reason to stand down and not fight back against corruption and evil, the New Age crowd or the hippies, the trendies, people that didn't believe in God, they needed a reason to not be involved. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's what the whole 2012 hoax is about. An artificial superstition to make people turn control of their lives over to the globalist technocrats. Strangely enough, we find the answer to our current superstition in ancient cultures like the Mayan. And I don't just want to pick on them. This was system-wide throughout all human cultures, that you would see the rise of a priest class who would say, if you don't give us the best huts, the best temples, the best food, and finally human sacrifices, the greatest thing they could demand from the general population, the giant Titan god will swallow the sun, or the snake god will swallow the sun or moon, and it will be the end of the world if you don't give the priest class total control. And that's basically what politicians in Hollywood are doing again today. It's the end of the world with terrorism. It's the end of the world with the economy. If you don't give us more control, we're going to go over the fiscal cliff. You remember Karl Rove when he told the New York Times that it doesn't matter if we lie to people, it doesn't matter if we change the political narrative tomorrow, up is down, down is up in a 1984 fashion, because we in the governing class are history's actors now. And you, the public, are in such a coma, you will just accept whatever the new reality is. So sit down and shut up. And that's what these prophets of doom are doing. They are stealing the future. They are pre-scripting what it's going to be, and then we just fall into line and believe it like they're God. Don't let these people dominate and control the future. In conclusion, I want to cover some real threats that could not just destroy the human species, but could destroy this beautiful planet itself. Many top physicists and scientists are on record saying that these giant cyclotrons and superconducting supercolliders like the Hadron facility in Europe are engaged in experiments that could possibly destroy this planet.
By switching on a $10 billion machine in an attempt to recreate the Big Bang. But critics are worried it will create a black hole which could swallow the Earth.
Interestingly enough, CERN goes live on December 16th through the 21st. Many scientists have warned that nanotech could get out of control and create a self-replicating manufacturing system that would overtake the surface of the globe in just a matter of days. In hundreds of major studies, GMO crops that have been eaten by Americans for decades cause near total sterility, brain damage, and deformities in the different rodents that they've been fed to. Major universities for decades have been stampeding each other to publish things like the mousepox recipe that can be redesigned for humans very easily and inexpensively and kills more than 90% of mammal species that come in contact with it. And then, of course, there's the good old-fashioned threat of nuclear weapons. More than 60,000 of them held by governments right now, onboard aircraft, underwater submarines, missile cruisers. Back in the 1960s, many nuclear physicists believed that high-altitude detonations of hydrogen bombs could blow a hole in our atmosphere and that the planet could become dead. Still, the military went ahead with the test.
Teak, with a yield of 3.8 megatons, detonated nearly 50 miles above the surface of the Earth. The detonation created a violent magnetic disturbance in the atmosphere.
And the point I'm getting at here is that the mad scientist technocratic elite that runs our planet always engages in the most destructive, reckless behavior while lecturing us that we need a world government to keep rogue states from developing dangerous chemical, biological, and radiological weapons. The seeds of our destruction may have already been sown. It is imperative that we have a serious debate about the real threats facing us and not raptures and 2012 end-of-the-world garbage. There is no way that our society, that our civilization is going to survive if people don't start really getting wise about the real threats we face. If you are listening or watching this transmission, you are the resistance. All right, Aaron Dykes, that video is probably the greatest editing he's ever done. If you're a radio listener, we're going to post the video in the next hour. It's uploading now to Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. We'll air it on the nightly news tonight, PrisonPlanet.tv. And we've got another article about to go up from Melissa Melton. Teacher's son, 24, shoots dead 29, including 22 children at Connecticut Elementary, as he and second shooter massacre cowering students in the worst school shooting in American history. And that is an inside job right there, either way you cut it. I bet money that woman was a super liberal. I bet money. Because that's what I said. I said, I bet he's in his 20s, a big video gamer, a trendy. And I said that to Jakari and Melissa Melton and David Knight back there in their office. And they're like, yeah, he's 20-something, yeah. And then we found his photo. And, you know, it may just be a nut. Maybe staged. You know they're going to use it, though. Heaven help us. But the media is saying, here's the guy's photo, but then there's other photos of a guy with the same name. Who knows? We'll have to contract this. Let's talk to Bill, who's in Connecticut, next town over from where this happened. What's your take on this, Bill?
Well, I'm watching the local cable news, and they seem to have the most updated and accurate information. And they just indicated moments ago that the police are going door to door looking for a second gunman. And then they have a helicopter shot over another school a mile south called, let me see, St. Rose of Lima School. And about 6 policemen were in the parking lot. And then suddenly they just bolted into the school about 5 minutes ago. So right now it's just an overhead shot, and really no one knows why they went into the school, but it gives one pause to wonder what they're doing at that school to begin with.
Now, say that again for me. What exactly is happening on the local news?
That the police were in a parking lot of another school about a mile south of the other school, and the school is St. Rose of Lima School.
Sure.
And there were about 6 policemen in the parking lot. And suddenly they bolted into the school.
What, thinking there may be another shooter? I'm sure there's false alarms. People are probably panicking. Or I didn't see the video of this. I mean, what did it look like to you?
It looked like something was going on inside the school. Now, the reporters on the scene, from the local reporters, are saying that the police are going door to door in the area, apparently looking, they're assuming that they're looking for another gunman.
Oh, yeah. Listen, even a Prozac head, because, again, they admit it can cause psychotic breaks and make people have no empathy and do this. It takes incredible will to go around shooting little bitty kids. I mean, most soldiers, even with instinctive training, have trouble killing other men up close. It's just unbelievable. But I mean, there is this nihilistic sicko Satan culture out there where, you know, people think it's really cool to talk about hurting kids. And all I'd like to say is man, I'd like to get my hands on them. That's all I can say. But this could be staged as well. I mean, the Batman thing had all the signs of it, and more just keeps coming out. And it is crazy to think government could be doing this, but they did Fast and Furious. Sirhan was mind-controlled. The police report said he didn't shoot RFK. I mean, there's so many examples of real mind-control programs. You know, it's hard to believe the government does secret experiments on kids and kills them, but it's been declassified. I don't know. What's your gut tell you about this?
My gut, I agree with you that there's something more to it. You don't have all of these incidents happen clustered in the past few years and not having some other factor.
Well, notice it didn't happen the last few years, and now that Obama's coming in with gun control, magically these shootings are popping up. I mean, heaven help us, folks. Pray for no copycats. Pray for no copycats. Here are the headlines up at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. Michael Moore calls for strict gun control after school massacre. Enemies of Second Amendment will exploit Connecticut shooting. We're just going to continue here, folks, into overdrive. We're going to continue here throughout the hour, taking your phone calls. Enemies of Second Amendment will exploit Connecticut shooting. We've got that headline. Monolithic intelligence agency collecting info on every American to protect crimes. Trilaterals discuss big war in Middle East as Obama sends soldiers to Turkey. TSA calls bomb specialist on wheelchair-bound 12-year-old girl with bone disorder as she cries, telling the mother she couldn't comfort him. It's all about dominating us. Samsung TVs can be hacked to spy on viewers. I mean, it's just all insane. Right now, let's go back to your calls. Toll-free number for everybody to join us, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Let's go ahead and talk to Pete in Long Island, who's been holding. Pete, give us your take on the situation.
Alex, I think, like you mentioned before, we need to say a prayer for all the victims' families, the first responders on the scene, and the teachers, everyone who's witnessing this horrific event. I'm monitoring the Newswire here in Long Island, CBS News, you know, because they got the all-seeing eye as their logo. And it's really interesting. I got a couple of points if you can give me time. I know that we're up against the end of the show, but... No, I'm going to keep going. We're in overdrive. Go ahead. All right, great. Well, they're talking... This one reporter asked the local reporter on the scene, you know, we had reports of a second shooter in the woods, and he wouldn't confirm that story. So they're not ready to come forward with a second shooter yet. They're still pushing this narrative that it was a lone gunman, you know. And the second thing I wanted to talk about was that this is very reminiscent of the Dunblane massacre in Great Britain back in '96 that pushed a total gun ban in Great Britain in 1997. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I listened to the calls, but then since I'm going into overdrive, I was having to give them the directions. They popped in my ear for 5 seconds. What was the last question?
I wanted to get your thoughts on how this is eerily reminiscent of the Dunblane school massacre in Great Britain.
No, incredibly. And they had a Tasmanian shooting that was just the same. And look, here's the deal. People who are ignorant go, Alex, how can you always say we've got to look at this as government? I'm not saying that. I'm saying if governments have a history of being caught staging fake shootings and bombings to take people's liberties and crack down on the public in the name of security, and you've got telltale signs of it over and over again, you've got to then investigate to see if criminal elements of government or foreign corporations or the UN or others are involved. I mean, it's a fact that Israel, just type in Israel created fake al-Qaeda groups. Israel staged bombings against itself. Not saying all bombings against Israel are fake, but I mean, that's Haratz and Jerusalem Post. I'm not anti-Israel because I report Israel's been caught doing it. Germany, London Guardian, Der Spiegel reports, has been caught firebombing buildings to blame it on the right wing to take liberties. That happened a bunch in the 90s. Governments do this. And so being naive about it I mean, I'm not saying you're saying this, I'm answering your question, really only helps the globalists do this more. Are there real crazies? Yes. Do they hype mass school shootings to where unstable people then think about it? That's a way to do it, too. Listen, when they have real terror attacks, we've had real power plants and chemical plants blown up and real bombings in this country, corporate terrorism and stuff where it's real groups doing it, and it's on the news one time, never heard again, because you don't give terrorism attention. Okay, that used to be in the handbooks till the early 90s of all major governments. You don't give it attention. That gives the terrorists what they want. When you see a terror attack and they hype it like it's the end of the world, you can better believe government's behind it, or they allowed it to happen, or they're going to use it to take your freedoms and they're being cynical. So there's your answer. Yeah, no, I mean... The numbers vary, but since 1973, 53 million babies have been aborted in this country. And the left are a bunch of eugenics, death-loving, secret testing on population, collectivists who want control of your children and your life and who want death education in the schools and who want to euthanize old people and children and kill babies up to age 3. If you're a new listener, just type in bioethics publication, bioethics medical journal, calls for killing babies up to age 3. They use children to scare you into submission to get your guns. More guns means less crime, and the gun culture's winning. And if we beat them on that, we can beat them on everything. Where people know that the government wants our guns to enslave us, when the local police understand that, when the states understand that, and with that basic understanding, we can beat them on every front. And we've had police call in today and say, absolutely, these schools are victim disarmament zones where crazy people like this son of one of the teachers reportedly now, 18 dead children. We'll put up the latest numbers there on screen for folks. If we can, just throw that article up there with the latest numbers, guys. And then we'll go to people's phone calls here. 27 dead, including 18 children at Sandy Hook school shooting in Newtown, one of the biggest school shootings in our history. And they used school shootings in England that had government connections that later turned out, and in Australia to take the guns. This is the mode. The government shipped tens of thousands of guns and hand grenades into Mexico to blame the Second Amendment and got caught doing it. The government, that is the criminals that run Washington, D.C. Our government's using al-Qaeda, which we forced into mainstream news, New York Times this week, and the White House had to respond, to kill Christians, to blow up mosques, to blow up synagogues, to go after minority groups in Syria. Our government is backing al-Qaeda, so don't think for a minute they wouldn't wind up some crazy person and protect them and let them do this. Now, I don't know that. This guy fits the MO, of some trendy, spoiled, rotten brat going in and killing his mommy and her whole class. I mean, just little bitty children. And there's so much evil in our culture now. I mean, people are really into sick stuff now. And that's all the more reason for me to own guns. Okay? I don't want to live like they do in the cities where they've banned the guns and the crime rate's off the chart and the thugs rule everything. And that's what I'm going to say on that subject. We've got articles up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Michael Moore, that disgusting anti-American authoritarian pig, he's not a liberal. Well, I've seen with bodyguards with guns in New York who manhandled me. It's on video in martial law, my film, when I'm like 15 feet away doing nothing but videotaping him. Michael Moore calls for strict gun control after school massacre. Enemies of Second Amendment will exploit Connecticut shooting. Big article there that's got links to admitted mind control in the previous path. So we're going to be getting to all of that. But right now, let's get your take from callers. Eddie in Texas wants to talk about the supposed Facebook page for the reported shooter. And we'll give you more of his name and information here in a moment. Go ahead. You're on the air, sir.
Yeah, Alex. Yeah, I was just watching the Alex Jones show. I'm down here in Robstown, Texas. And we looked up his name because they went ahead and they said his name on one of the local news stations, Ryan Lanza, I believe, and immediately we got on Facebook, and their Facebook page is glorifying basically what he did. The like kind, not the friend kind, the ones you can basically go ahead and like. And I just think that it's ridiculous, and I think it's repulsive that people are going around and just mass glorifying this shooter And it goes to show that, they're going to do what they can to basically say that, more people support gun bans.
Well, I mean, look at the mall shooter. It's these spoiled, rotten, arrogant Hollywood types that are so arrogant and into this image of themselves as super cool, and the more arrogant they act, the more powerful they are. And then when their narcissistic world falls in, they think of the nastiest thing they can do as a selfishness and go out and shoot people. It's the same thing in the gangbanger culture, just from a different angle. And elementary school massacre, 26 dead, 27 dead now, 18 kids in Connecticut. And, I mean, it's always the M.O. here. And you notice they've declared war on the Second Amendment, and now all this magically kicks off. And, they can even program people to the television sets now with subliminals. And if you're susceptible, I mean, we're in deep trouble. And they're going to use this to go after our Second Amendment. Yeah, and I've seen that. But we should do a report on people glorifying him, because I don't know what you call it or quantify it. Are you aware of the culture that's big on, like, torturing animals now? And the culture that's big on being evil is really cool, and just, and it's spreading with the hopelessness in some of the youth. I mean, is that what you're getting at here, Eddie?
What I think personally is, I think that, it's just all this torturous things that they, these kids try to play these video games, and the government allows these things to go on. I think it brainwashes people into personally believing that it's cool to go around and, play this Call of Duty-like life and things like that. No.
There's no doubt, and great points. There's no doubt. People say, well, I play Call of Duty. I'm not a killer. That's because you weren't already twisted and a little bit mentally ill and on a serotonin reuptake inhibitor that literally programs you. The Pentagon developed video games. Video games were invented because in Vietnam and previous wars, if somebody was like 10 feet away from you, a lot of people wouldn't kill somebody. So it's called instinctive shooting. That's what paper targets were for, was to get you to, bad guy, good guy, woman with a baby, don't shoot, guy with a gun, shoot. It was to instinctively train to kill. If you do not have a strong killer instinct at the moment of truth, you will not kill. You will become dead, Marine. Okay, so it's a killer instinct. And the video game Doom, a first-person shooter deal, was developed for the Pentagon. Okay, so it's a fact. People go, I'm not saying get rid of it because of the First Amendment, but many of these shooters, Harrison Kleinbold, the list goes on and on. The last guy at the mall, it turns out, was a big shooter gamer. They live this whole world, then they get guns, and they just, I've seen cases where somebody gets a gun, these young people, and there's a shootout at their house that night because they weren't brought up in the Second Amendment culture. And, hey, just because the culture's falling apart and rotting apart doesn't, it'd be like saying ban having children for everybody because other people might abort their kid. That makes no sense. That'd be like ban, sports because somebody might get hurt. Because there's bad people out there, you don't get to take my guns. That's the reason I have my guns. And there is this, if you have to talk about them, it's like a punk, black, white, Hispanic, you name it. A lot of times they're white or Hispanic. I've noticed that trend. Blacks is usually statistically, it's just, I guess, a cultural, the way the media works, things, blacks killing blacks, as other males. But then a lot of times if it's white or Hispanics, and they kill each other in gang stuff too, but statistically these active shooter things are, everybody goes postal, but it just keeps being white guys and sometimes Hispanic. And it's a video game head. They're usually into the occult. They're hipster trendies, and they throw a fit and go kill a bunch of people. And you've also got veterans. They'll kill cops if they come to their house, or they'll kill their family because they've been 5, 6, 7 tours. The Pentagon puts them on drugs. I mean, that's a terrible idea. Let's go to Ben in Louisiana. What's your take on this?
I mean, it's practically the same thing as always. I think how it's kind of weird, just like you said, even if it isn't an inside job, even if it wasn't the government or whatever, they're still going to use it to their advantage. As a matter of fact, I can see right now on my TV on Fox News, President Obama's making an announcement and all that stuff. I can almost guarantee you that he's going to say we need to get rid of the guns. But it's, for instance, like you said, Israel puts, like, the M16s in the lockers, which, by the way, I didn't know. But, I mean, that's perfect. Give the teachers for elementary schools and all these schools, give the teachers the guns, train them how to use them.
Well, actually, in many areas of Israel, the students bring M16s. but I mean, my dad used to bring his rifles and shotguns to school.
No, that's just like me. I'm 20 years old. I just graduated high school 2 years ago. We were allowed to have our guns in our trucks. We just couldn't take them out. But I mean, it's just like you said. Everybody wants to get away from the guns, which isn't really the problem.
No, the problem, look, blaming guns for crime is like blaming spoons for fat people. It's like blaming, saying, Michael Vick was fighting dogs, so let's ban everybody owning dogs because somebody might do something bad with a dog. Do you see what I mean? But you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, how does the anti-gun control, how does I'm the anti-gun control crowd. How does the anti-gun crowd sell that? Look, they're authoritarians. Michael Moore, all these people, they have a job. Break the American spirit, get our guns. MTV, all of it pushes the gangster culture, the violent culture, the video games, the nihilism, the Satanism, in the name of scaring all of us and turning our guns in. No, I guarantee you gun sales are going to be all-time record now, and that's good. The answer is, look, I can kill people with a hammer. I can kill you with my car. I can kill you with a nail gun. I can kill you with a hatchet. It's this idea that it's guns that are causing the violence. There's as many stabbings every year as there are shootings. Look it up. We'll be back. Well, CNN, Salon, all of them, I've got the articles right here. They're all blaming the Second Amendment, just saying ban guns, period. Obama has come out and given a speech. I have a transcript of it. We're printing off right now. And he said, we've got to come together and take meaningful action to stop this, and that means restrict the Second Amendment. So, they're going to exploit this tragedy. Hollywood puts out the most indiscriminate violence, death, murder, you name it, showing people using firearms in an improper way. And then on top of it, they're anti-gun. So remember that, too. Remember that, too. So this is the idea. By the way, here's an article. People pointed this out. We need to do a report on this. Maybe I'll get one of the writers to ask the question, will Obama call for banning knives? Here is the article. This is out of current.com. Knife-wielding man injures 22 children in China. A knife-wielding man slashed 22 children and an adult in an elementary school in central China on Friday. State media reported the latest in a series of attacks on school children in the country. Yeah, they're having their own epidemic. Like I saw one where they killed a bunch of kids in Japan with knives. So there is a certain type of demon ghoul, especially with all the advertising of this, that goes out to attack children. And here is Obama says there will have to be, this actually cut off the printout, so I can't read it. Of these incidents in recent years, there have been too many, and they're going to have to come together to take meaningful action to stop more incidents like these, regardless of the politics. And it just goes on and on. He says he's very heartbroken for the dead children. Of course, not the ones he's bombing illegally with drones right now, though. That's collateral damage when you killed 50-something kids at a wedding to kill one guy you claim's bad, violating the Geneva Convention illegally in somebody else's country with robot drones killing people. But that's collateral damage, though. We're not going to hear about those kids or be shown them. We're just going to be showing these kids over and over again to get our guns. Just remember the cold-blooded way they're using these murdered children, sucking, like vampires, the energy of these murdered children for themselves to disarm us so they can make us their collectivist slaves. Noel in Virginia, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
I'm not doing too good. Well,
it's a shame. I talked to you on the election night. I was the last caller, if you recall. But the bomb, my little boy just went with his mother because we're separated. Anyway, listen, I don't believe anything that the news media says. I believe that this is all orchestrated. I believe that this is just, the government has no respect for our rights anymore. They're doing this so they can take our guns. and then we all could go into Agenda 21.
Well, listen, they've got people that hate guns so bad. We're noticing a trend with sicko leftists on Twitter where they're praising this, saying, good, now we can get their guns, use this Obama to take their guns and give us their money. So they've got nihilistic liberals that hate America so much. We should look at that as a theory, that they may start having their own zombies do this. That's how bad they want our guns. It's like a form of suicide bomber, a suicide shooter. A lot of these guys are leftists, we're now learning. They could be doing this to get our guns that way. You ever think about that?
Oh, yeah. Listen, nothing will stun me anymore in this world that we live in. We need to pray to God. We need to stay close to our children. But, Alex, if you got a chance, I know you're a researcher, you need to look at the last 3 days of CNN at 9 o'clock show, that idiot from England. Well, they had gun control issues in those 3 days.
No, I know. Sir, they have hit the ground running in a build-up, and I said, this is the attack. People got to find the clips the last 2 months. I said they are launching attacks. They're getting ready. I can see them warming up with Obama. They've got a bigger majority in the Congress now, in the Senate. They are going to come after our guns, look for mass shootings. And then magically it happens. They are coming. They are coming. They are coming. They've already taken over health care. The premiums are doubling. They're bankrupting that. They're already shipped GM to China. They are going to gut this country. They're going to shut down the power plants. They're going to bankrupt us. They are re-educating us. Just like we were Ukrainians, and they're Russians. They want us bankrupt. They want the counties and the cities bankrupted and federalized. The feds themselves run by globalists. What does the new magazine say? You can get it by subscribing. You can get 12 issues. Great way to, this man wants your guns. And I break down in here, they're declaring war on the Second Amendment, period. They are declaring war on the Second Amendment, period. They are coming after our Second Amendment. It is happening. They want to kill America in 2013. That is their goal. That is what they want. They are moving to do it. Send your tips to Real Alex Jones on Twitter. Tell me what you think. Comment in the articles. I'll be reading what you're saying. We'll have more reports Sunday 4 to 6 and more reports tonight on the Nightly News 7 o'clock. PrisonPlanet.tv. PrisonPlanet.tv. God bless you. We'll be right back.